Welcome to episode 201 of the Reptile Gumbo podcast. If you missed our big 200th episode, go listen to it. It was great last week.
It was a great episode.
We had a bunch of guests on. It was a lot of fun. We got to revisit with people we haven't talked to in a long time. So it was a good episode. Go back and give that a holler. Also, I apologize those two episodes didn't come out until like 2 days ago.
Sickness.
Our family's been dying over here. I got the flu for the very first time in my entire life, and it just made me tired. I was just tired. I slept for like 5 days.
But you also had chills and hot flashes.
And slept.
But you slept a lot.
I woke up at 7:30 p.m. one day.
I woke up to feed you and give you medicine. Like I would wake you up to do that. And that was it.
So, but I'm alive now. And Katie's going to be trying not to cough your ears off all night.
She's make it a fun drinking game, but I'm afraid somebody
No, don't drink whenever she coughs. You'll die. I cannot.
I have not stopped coughing since I got home from school today.
All right, let's do our sponsor stuff real quick. I'll go ahead and read it for you so you don't die over here. Little Shop of Horrors is a small feeder and pet supply business based in San Antonio. And they regularly schedule feeder meetups around San Antonio as well as other neighboring towns and cities. They offer shipping on their feeder insects, isopods, and are working on starting shipping on their feeder rodents too. All feeders are raised on a nutritional diet that optimizes the health and reptiles and amphibians that consume them. Go give a shout out to our buddy Lewis over at Lil's, L-I-L''S, Shop of Horrors for all your feeder needs. Also, let's go with Herp shows. Herps, our next Herp show is February 24th, 25th, end of the month. We will not be able to go to that because we have a concert on the 25th.
What?
February 25th. I got a concert.
We may have to come back early then.
Are we going to that one?
We'll see.
Are you going to go see Sea Turtles?
We'll see. I don't know because we just found out about that concert today.
We'll see. Anyways, Corpus Christi is February 24th, 25th. Baton Rouge, Louisiana is March 2nd and March 3rd. Bryan College Station is March 9th and March 10th. Then our new home show in Rosenberg, Texas, which is basically Sugarland, is March 16th and March 17th. Slidell, Louisiana, April 6th and 7th. Austin, Texas, April 20th and April 21st. West Monroe, Louisiana, May 4th and May 5th. And still over in Louisiana for Lake Charles, June 1st and June 2nd, which we will probably be at. That'll be like our first show once our summer vacation starts. Mm-hmm. So we'll probably be at that one.
Yeah.
Make it a summer vacation trip.
And that's not far either.
A sad summer vacation trip to Lake Charles. Oh, God. Anyways, if you're there, come to the show. If you're thinking about vacationing there, don't. As someone that lived in Louisiana, it is. I'm very upset that is the first thing people see when they come in. It's just nothing but oil refineries. So, but there will be a great reptile show there, June 1st and June 2nd. Come by and see us. All right. VivTech products. If you want to get an LED UVB light bulb that runs forever, it runs forever. At some point, I will have to buy new ones, but not anytime soon. Use code GUMBO22 to save 15% on your LED UVB bulbs from VivTech or any other VivTech products. They have halogen bulbs you can get if you want to get some halogen bulbs. I don't know who that is that commented there.
I think it might be your dad.
It could be my dad. I don't know. Darren's watching. Darren's a great fan.
I was about to say.
Also, VivTech has all the smart devices. Check out VivTech. I haven't given a shout out to our friends over at Focus Cube. They're the ones that made this amazing sign behind us. If you need a great, you want a cage for the living room, so when people walk in, they go, holy crap, check out Focus Cube and get you an amazing cage from them. Am I missing anybody? I don't think I'm missing anybody.
Oh, that was Chris Eaton.
Oh, fuck Chris Eaton. Anyways. I think that's it. Nothing else. We are going to do our giveaway for January at the end of the show. We also will talk about a few things. The NARBC Dallas show. We'll talk about that later in this show. That's an interesting thing that came out today. And we'll talk about some U.S. ARC stuff. Colorado is fucked if things happen there. So we'll talk about that stuff later as well. Let's go ahead. Katie's going to die over here at some point. If anybody's watching live, you can just watch it. She's not suffocating herself with the towel.
Oh, God. I'm trying to muffle the cough. But that was one. So if you are drinking, that's one shot down.
But if she does pass out, she'll wake back up, guys. It's fine.
Oh, my God.
All right, let's get to our guest tonight.
I can't take any more cough medicine. I've hit my limit.
So this guest, Katie, has been That's why she's.
This is why I'm still here, because I wanted her on the podcast for so long.
She's been wanting this guest for a while, and we finally got it set up, and we got her on here, and now Katie's dying.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm here.
Our guest tonight, we've had her on before. We had her on at a conro for a little tiny bit, and we talked birdies then.
Yeah.
But our guest tonight is Haidyn Leigh. How's it going, Haidyn?
Hey, how are you guys? Well, we kind of
weren't sick. You could totally be here in studio with us.
That is true. Yeah, Haydyn was going to come.
Was like, Haydyn's coming to the house Tuesday. I'm like, you need to let her know that the flu is in this household and she may not want to be here.
Yeah, that's true.
I appreciate that because
nobody wants that. Nobody.
If somebody's going to catch something, it's me.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, there's 4 of us in the house currently, and we all have gotten something. So
we all have something. Yeah. I will say though, we definitely have had the worst out of everybody.
Yeah.
The other 2 like quarantined upstairs, and we just kind of live
the
downstairs.
2 people who actually have to take care of the rest of everything that's happening. Yeah.
Yes, I missed 3 days of work last week, and for anybody that knows me, I don't ever miss work, so it was very weird missing 3 days of work in a row.
If my mom wouldn't have been in from out of town, Joe wouldn't have gotten to school. Like if it wasn't for my mom, I don't know how my kid would have made it where she needed to be.
You're like Uber. So have you seen the commercials recently for like the Uber teen? And I was like, that just doesn't seem like a good idea. But I guess in this particular instance,
I mean, yeah, you can track them the whole way there. So
Darren says hello, Haydyn. Darren's one of our listeners. He's awesome.
Hey, how are you?
Darren's the only person, I'm going to point it out again. He's the only person I know that owns 2 snakes. 2.
I tell people at the pet store all the time, I'm like, it kind of is like potato chips. You have 1 and then you have 10.
Yeah, no, Darren owns 2 and he's owned 2 for years.
But you know what? If they're the best cared for 2 snakes, then, you know.
Well, I'm sure they're amazing cared for, but one's a ball python. So just saying.
I've got like 5 of those now, so be careful.
I've got some too, and I'm still going to make fun of them.
Oh, does that cough? Does that count as a cough? Or
no, you didn't almost die.
We're not. So it's only when I have to use the towel. That's when we're counting for drinks.
When you have to throw the towel in.
Only 1 shot so far, folks.
Hey, listen, if you can make it a drinking game, then at least the rest of us will be having fun.
It's not a drinking game as much as she's trying to commit murder through the radio.
Oh, probably don't drink. It's probably a good call.
Alcohol poisoning. See that? There you go. That's number 2.
You're not supposed to make fun of your wife. I guess, you know what? I don't know what a healthy marriage looks like. So maybe you are supposed to make fun.
I remember shortly after she joined the podcast, there was a listener that left a review
my favorite.
That said that I shouldn't make fun of my wife. I should respect my wife more.
It was beautiful.
Fuck that. I'm making fun of my wife.
Shit and put it on the wall.
I'm just here for Katie, so sorry.
Most people are. It's cool.
None of y'all have to live here and deal with this, so I get to make fun of her.
You love me.
I didn't say I didn't love you.
You wouldn't know what to do without her.
Yeah, I would have peace of mind. I don't know.
His world would be a lot calmer.
When I'm talking to people that I'm like potentially thinking about dating, I'm always like, listen, I can't promise a lot of things, but I can promise that your life will never be boring. Like,
that is fact. That is true.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
I love how women say that, but it's never followed up. It will never be boring and always good. It just will never be boring.
It's just like implied. It's implied, right? Like,
look, we're going on 19 years.
Time for a new one.
So we're doing all right. Good luck with that.
I'm too lazy to find a new one.
Yeah, well, it's okay if it seals the deal in your marriage. I can tell you that online dating is absolutely the worst thing I've ever done in my whole life.
Oh yeah, I could not imagine having to actually date, because we've been together since
college,
her freshman year of college, my sophomore year of college. So I've never had to like try and date somebody.
No, dating is horrible, and it's also worse if you have to be like, and by the way, I have a room full of snakes and also a hawk. And 3 macaws.
The hawk should definitely. All right, the macaw will scare people off, but the hawk,
sun conure could be a mood killer.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine you're in the mood and all of a sudden that thing just starts screaming in the other room. Yeah, it's done.
I thought I was being like really cheeky, and my tattoo artist Brandon Ricks at Whiteheart, we're real good friends. He actually did all of my reptile photos that I've posted, like the professional ones. He and I were messaging back and forth because his wife just got her first bird, and he was like, dude, it's so loud. Like, I hate it. I hate this bird. And I was like, listen, like, you know what makes one bird better? A second bird.
That's not true at all.
He was like, Absolutely not. So like I'm like taking a screenshot. I sent it to this guy that I'm talking to, and he's like, "Man, that sounds horrible. I don't know who would want birds." And I was like,
Uh-oh.
All right, well, never mind.
"Yeah." I
Moving
was
on.
like, "You just told on yourself. I'm sorry."
It's funny. There's a newish podcast. It's I feel bad because they listen and they've been on here, and I can't remember the name of the podcast. It's two girls. Like,
Oh yeah.
Their first episode was one of the first episodes talking about like trying to
Talks about
date
how to date when you're in
with
the
reptiles.
Yeah.
And they talked about like not telling people and like holding out until they get to know you. And I'm like, no, fuck that. They got to know right away. Like someone they can't find out later.
For me, like that's something that I really struggled with, like pre-falconry even, was how do you break it to somebody that your whole life revolves around this like all-consuming hobby, right? And I finally was like, you know what? I'm not even going to try to hide it. Like, there's not a point, because ultimately, like, I'm going to waste like 2 to 3 hours of my life going on dates with people, and they'd be like, "Hey, do you like snakes?" And they're like, "No." Okay, well,
I didn't.
you know what?
I would not even walk in the room with them.
But I didn't tell you I didn't have them. Like I didn't hide that.
No.
Like you knew I had them from the get-go.
You just didn't want anything to do with them, which is definitely different than hiding them, I think.
Yeah.
So like, but it's funny because now that I've been working at the pet store, there was a customer that came in, and it was a lady and her son really wanted a snake. And she was like, "I just hate snakes. Like, I don't want to have to touch it. I don't want to look at it, like any of these things." Well, she brings it in actually this past weekend to buy food for it. And she's like, "Okay, you were right. I still don't want to touch it, but it's really fun to watch. And I'm kind of considering letting him get a second one." And I was like, "I told you, you get really attached. Like, even if you don't know it, I think it's really hard not to if something's like living in your house."
Mm-hmm.
And the little freeloaders, like they just.
Well,
once you learn their personality, you get attached.
I'd say, Haydyn, you could date people in the reptile hobby, but I've met people in the reptile hobby. They're fucking weird. Don't do that either.
Don't do that.
I honestly, so like, I can't, sounds so mean. I can't honestly think of anybody in the reptile hobby that I would really want to date.
I feel like the problem is you end up dating somebody in the reptile, and then you both like you judge each other's keeping as a reptile keeper.
Honestly, I think that my bigger fear with dating people in the reptile hobby, and this is going to sound horrible, is like if it doesn't work.
Oh yeah.
And we all know the same people, and I have to see you forever for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I can get that.
Like, and there have been people that I'm like, "Oh, they're really cute," and then I realize that we have mutual friends. And I'm like,
people are gonna keep me, and they're gonna kick James to the curb if we ever don't make it.
With all those reptiles you have?
Your parents said they would keep me.
Yeah, they lied to you about that stuff. They're my parents.
I don't think they lied to her.
I have Joe. Joe's in my
I like
pocket.
how you believe that. I talk to my parents.
I believe that. I believe it.
My parents are picking me no matter what.
I mean,
and Joe will come. Look, 50% of Joe is mine, so I still get 50% of the time with her.
There is at least a 50% chance that 3 of my exes are people that my mom would have picked over me. I mean, it certainly would have been the cheaper option, right? Like, it was funny because, and I feel like I've said this on like several like public forums, but when I got into reptiles, my mom was like, I actually was going through a really bad breakup. And I was like, I've worked with all of these different animals. I don't know what, like, I'm bored. I just need like an outlet for all of this like emotional energy. I want to get a bearded dragon. My mom was like, "Listen, I've let you have everything you've ever wanted." I was like probably 17 at the time. "I've let you have everything you've ever wanted. I do not want scaly things in my house." So we compromised and we got the bearded dragon. I'm an only child, by the way, if that wasn't obvious.
I like that. We compromised and did what I wanted.
And got what I wanted.
Yeah, we compromised and we got the bearded dragon. The bearded dragon became her like best friend in the whole world. We went from the bearded dragon to a green iguana to like all of these different lizards. We got our first like snake, and I had a snake growing up. My brother passed away a few months ago, and it's funny because like one of the first snake memories that I have.
Haydyn, you can't follow "my brother passed away a few months ago" with the very next sentence. It's funny.
It's
phrasing is important, and that you got to put some space there, fill it in with something else.
You know what? I like to think positively because he is.
All right, Paul, no dirty old man stuff. Stop it.
Listen, I'm a falconer. I'm used to dirty old men. It's
Paul
fine.
wants you to come. He's offering to let you come play with his snake.
You know, people try that on Tinder too. They're like, I've got a snake you can play with. And I'm like, you're really original.
Tell
Original.
them yours is bigger than theirs.
I'm like, you know what? If you can play with any of my snakes, we'll talk about it. Yes.
All right, sorry. I ruined your story.
I'm 15 minutes in, and I've already almost.
By the way, that's the third cough. If anybody's still thinking about one drink.
So, but see, it is funny because I think the memory that I hold on to the most with him is that, like, my first interaction with a snake using a like makeshift snake hook was this red-tailed boa that my brother had that got out of its cage. We finally found it. I ended up having to like wrangle it because it was the meanest red-tailed boa. It's probably why I don't like boas to this day.
I fucking love boas.
I am not a boa person, and I think it's because that snake was the meanest bitch I've ever met.
Oh, I've got some of those, but I still love them.
I like I don't like refuse to touch them or anything, but boas are something that I don't keep at all.
But
I don't know
ball pythons, boo.
Hey, listen, if it were up to me, if I didn't have to worry about the whole like maybe dying thing, I would probably have mostly venomous again.
I mean, if you're not free handling venomous, you're doing it wrong.
Oh,
you know,
God, James.
That's what the internet has taught me. If you're not willing to grab them by the hand and just hold them, and
is that it?
Huh?
That's it. That's why we don't have any.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't want to do it wrong.
Oh,
you won't let me free handle, Katie.
Nope, I won't.
You gotta let me be me.
Such a horrible person.
There's a lot of ways to do it wrong. Like you can do everything right and still do it wrong.
I'm pretty sure booping the snoot of any venomous snake you own is the proper way to take care of them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, if you aren't doing like some risky behavior on Facebook Live for views, then like, what's the point in having them?
If you're not like staring right at the camera, talking just to the camera while an extremely venomous snake is 3 inches away from you and you're not paying attention to it, then what the fuck are you doing?
We don't milk venomous snakes on live for views.
Anyway, so we still got to wait from here. So yeah, boas. You should definitely like boas, and you're wrong.
I probably am wrong. I've been known to do that, but
you'd find better men if you would keep boas.
James.
She doesn't know.
Okay.
It could be true. Y'all don't know. She hasn't found a great guy yet, and she doesn't have boas. So
I mean, James says have boas.
Causation, correlation. Here we go.
I mean,
okay, fair point.
Listen, you know what? If there's any boa keepers that want to prove me wrong, cheers to you.
I mean, look, if we're talking ball pythons, that leads you to people like Paul. So I'm just saying.
Definitely, like, listen. I'm not saying the ball keepers.
Those damn ball keepers.
Ball keepers in general, your guys are out. Sorry. It's me and Katie now forever.
Yep.
Yeah.
You haven't dealt with her. I'm telling you right now. She seems great on the outside until you get to know her.
Boy, shut up.
I'm pretty high maintenance. I don't know. Like,
that's one thing I will say.
Katie's
not.
Extreme.
She's not high maintenance because I would never.
I'm just extra. That's all.
If you were high maintenance, I wouldn't put up with you.
I'm not high maintenance.
I don't think I'm high maintenance though in the way that people think women are high maintenance. I'm high maintenance in the like I actually canceled the date to go hunt my bird.
Yeah, I wore mascara to school the other day and my fourth graders lost their minds because I had on makeup. They're like, "You have on makeup." I'm like, "I literally put mascara on so I didn't look like I was dying."
But like mascara is a big deal in fourth grade. Like I feel like that was like the first makeup I was allowed to wear, and they don't correlate that like you were once their age.
Yeah, I'm probably their only teacher that doesn't wear makeup too.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because I don't.
Okay.
Anyways,
let's get to birds.
Okay,
people are here to learn about birds, and not the dumb birds, but the cool birds.
The cool birds. Because I didn't realize you had as many birds as you had.
Yeah, so we're going to talk to her about the cool birds, not the dumb birds.
I know, but I thought you only did the hawk stuff.
Cool
so it's kind of funny because I would not do birds if it weren't for reptiles.
Technically, birds are reptiles.
Birds are actually, and like this is gonna like really piss in some people's Cheerios, but if you want to talk about keeping dinosaurs,
yeah,
birds are literally like the closest thing. Chickens, man, like look at a chicken; it's basically a T-Rex.
Well, they evolved from dinosaurs.
So what was the first bird you had?
So funny enough, I'm currently working at Pets Aplenty. And by the way, like my catchphrase is funny enough. It might be inappropriate at times.
But is it funny enough?
Oh
I don't know. We're about to find out.
Okay.
So I've been really good, like friends with the owner of Pets Aplenty and Andy at Pets Aplenty, who's the general manager. And they had a macaw who lived there that was given to them by a customer. And she hates everybody. So I, of course, took that as a challenge. And I was like, I'm going to make this bird my best friend. So I would go in every day and every day that I went up there, and I would give her food and all of these things. And like, they all loved her, but she couldn't be out when the store was open because she bit people, and they didn't have time to like just sit and play with her besides. So she finally decided, hey, like, okay, I guess if you bring me like cool snacks, like we can be friendly. And Eric was like, listen,
Bribed her for her love.
Pretty much, which is like, honestly, what I'm finding is like food is the way to people and animals' hearts. So Eric was like, you know what, just like take her home. And if she does really well, you can keep her, as long as if there's ever a reason you can't keep her, you bring her back to the store. And I was like, okay. So I brought her home. My mom was so pissed. She was like, what are we going to do if we get this giant bird in our house and it wants to attack us?
Valid.
And it's screaming all the time. So she ended up, her name is Bird Dog. Bird Dog did really, really well. I went out of town for a falconry trip because this was my first year of falconry. It was the first year of COVID. And I went out of town for like a week. And when I came home, that bird and my mom were the best of friends. The bird hated me.
You abandoned her. That's why.
I abandoned her. So now to this day, she actually lets me hold her now after like almost 4 years. But she'll still bite me. In fact,
birds
I did
are more judgmental than cats.
Fuck birds.
Birds are one people animal. Usually you can occasionally get a bird that's like, I just want attention. I don't care who it's from, but they usually have like one person that they really want. So Bird Dog was our first bird, and she was like jumping in like head first. Like we went from like being sober straight to heroin. Like it was.
Yeah, you didn't like get like, let's get like a
cute little parakeet,
a Quaker,
or yeah, you went
so
straight blue and gold macaw.
I had a Derby and parakeet very first, but like
that parakeets bite hard.
So these are big parakeets. These are like Indian ringneck size parakeets.
Oh, wow.
But they are very, very independent. So I did not necessarily like it. I didn't have the relationship that I have it with my macaws. So from there, I got into falconry. And I will say this, if I had to pick between raptors and macaws, it would be really hard for me.
Oh, not even close for me. Fuck that.
It would be really hard for me.
What?
Give me the dinosaurs any day.
But they're both...
I don't need yappy ass colorful birds telling me that they don't like me and then they bite my fingers off. I'm not doing that.
Okay, hold on. So how many macaws do you currently have?
So I've got 3 species of macaws. I've got a military, a blue and gold, and a harlequin macaw. The harlequin is my baby. He's a hybrid. So it's a green wing, blue and gold hybrid. My personal opinion is that hybrid macaws are like, I actually told you guys this before the podcast. It's like taking 2 species of birds and taking their worst qualities and putting it in one bird. And then like you occasionally get the good side. But I've never met one that was like completely mentally stable.
It's kind of cool looking.
I do want to say Chris Dieter says he has questions. And before we do, Chris Dieter, if your question is, does she have Komodo dragons? No, you have Komodo dragons. 2 of them, in case anybody's wondering. Haidyn,
we can be friends. I'm just saying.
If we would get healthy, we could go visit with Chris Dieter. But
I would like to go visit with Chris Dieter and his Komodo dragons.
You get 2 of them, two Komodo dragons, in case anybody.
We got to get healthy before we can do experiences.
I'm like, yeah, no, I think I'm going to need to invite myself for that because
that's not the that to me that's not the cool thing. He's got a room full of Chinese alligators. Y'all leaving out the coolest part.
You buried the lead
no
there.
one will steal for you.
Just throw one in a purse.
Nobody
Dieter will
you,
never
Jay.
Notice a baby Chinese alligator
not
missing.
Stealing a Chinese alligator. I'm not.
It depends on how many Chinese alligators a person has, because like if you only have 3, you're going to notice with once.
Oh, he does not only have 3.
Oh, he doesn't.
Oh, hey.
Somehow he's like the lucky one who can get them to breed and
Yeah, he
Do
found
you
the.
keep
breed like
boas?
crazy.
His son wants to start
get into
falconry.
Oh
How
yeah,
old is
we'll get
so
you
how
guys.
old is your son?
Yeah, how old is the son, Chris?
Isn't he like in his teens now?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I'm not trying to like hook myself up, but
Calm down,
falconry-
Haydn.
No,
yeah,
Calm
no,
down.
No, so
The man's just looking for help.
in Texas at least, and I think it is I think it's nationwide.
Oh,
you
that's
have to
4
get
times, by the
in-
way, in case anybody's counting. Take a shot. Katie just coughed for the 4th.
Okay, so perfect. So you can start falconry in the United States at 12.
Oh, there you go.
See, he'll be 13 on his birthday.
Yeah.
I totally
So
thought he was older than our kid.
So that actually works really well. And I welcome, like, if you guys are interested in falconry, even if I'm not close, I'm in the Houston area, but even if I'm not close, I kind of know falconers all over the state. And I'm happy, like, if you message me to get you in touch with our apprentice coordinators here in Texas. If you're out of the state, we do have a national club. Certain states have their own clubs, and I can at least get you like website links and things like that. And yes, so technically anybody can take an apprentice as long as they are a general falconer of at least 2 years. So I actually just hit my 2-year mark, and I'm thinking about taking my first apprentice. My sponsor and I are like,
I'm just saying, Haydn, the kid whose dad owns Crocodile Encounters is probably your best apprentice.
Just gonna say that might actually be a thing
because he's got Komodo dragons.
yeah, I'm like, hey, can we trade Komodo dragons for an apprenticeship?
Okay, I don't think he's doing that. But if you can get a Chinese alligator out of it,
No,
what?
I don't have a place to put a Chinese alligator. I'm at least I'm at least mostly realistic. Two.
He's got two Komodo dragons.
That's
he's proud of these things.
I was about to say it's his flex. He's like, I don't have just one.
Yeah, it's 2.
When I tell you the look on James Lewis's face when he found out that Chris had 2 Komodo dragons.
No. The Komodos aren't the thing.
The Komodos
it's the room full of Chinese alligators that y'all are leaving out.
That was a great moment. Watching you walk into that room was probably as cool as me being up close.
It's an entire room of the one reptile I would give up every reptile for.
It's great.
So the question is, if you could only have one reptile, but you could have any reptile in the world,
Chinese alligators. Immediately.
Hyperfixation.
Yeah.
Now we know.
It's been that way for years.
I've worked with them. I love them. They are
had one
amazing.
at the zoo that we worked with, and he was amazing.
So I actually went to Crocodile Encounter years ago.
Don't say anything negative right now. Hey.
No, it was great. I just don't say anything negative right now.
Was it before Chris's time, or
it's all Chris's time?
It's always been Chris's time.
I
don't know my history of Croc Encounter.
I honestly don't even remember how many years ago it was, but I'm pretty sure I have a picture holding like a little baby alligator or crocodile or something.
They have those. They do have those.
Yeah.
It's fine, Chris. What we're gonna do is we'll make Haydn come with us to Croc Encounter, and then you can hit her with all your falconry questions, and she's trapped there.
And if you ever want to go hunting, just reach out to me. You gotta be careful how you say that, because that could be really misinterpreted.
Whoa, this just took a turn. By the way, that's 5 times. That's 5 shots for anybody that's keeping up with how often Katie coughs.
I don't have alcohol, but I have espresso.
5 shots. You may be starting to feel it now. Just a heads up.
Oh God. Don't do it. You'll die.
This is going to go really terribly wrong. So, yes, I'm happy to take people out. My bird is actually really good with strangers, and I have to credit the herp shows to that. In fact, after 4 years with this bird, this is the first year that I've really been
the
like.
bird's name is Goose, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. Goose.
But not after Top Gun.
He has his own following. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
He is a really good bird. That's kind of why I think I've kept him so long, is he does everything that I want him to do 90% of the time, and he's just such a good squirrel hawk. The dude is awesome. He's a big male, but so typically with squirrel hawks, people want females. That tends to be like the general
Because they're bigger, right? Females are bigger.
Yeah, the females are bigger typically.
Oh yeah.
God, he's huge.
So Goose is what we call a tweener. He's in between male and female weight. So I did have him DNA sex, and he is for sure a male. So I've gotten really attached to him. Obviously, he was my first bird. This was the first year that I was like, okay, I might have to start thinking about like, am I going to release you? And I just told James and Katie, I'm finally off one day of the weekend, and a huge like conversation that I had. So like my sponsor and I are still like best friends. I love her to death. She taught me pretty much everything I know. And I can't say thank you enough.
Okay.
So Aisha, if you're watching this, thank you.
I want to pause. I don't want to ruin your story, but I want to answer some of Chris's questions, but I want to do that I want to explain the process you have to take from start to where you are now to get into this if someone wants to get into this, because I think a lot of people see that and they don't understand that there is quite a process, and it's an odd process to me, and I think to anybody who's not in falconry, the whole process of getting into it and doing it is odd.
So okay, well then we'll come back to releasing Goose, but hold on, I'm so sorry, my computer is going bonkers because I'm getting messages. Anyway, so to start, I actually knew several falconers from reptiles. So Tyler Sladen, Corey Rolke, they're all falconers that also happen to be reptile people.
Yes, Chris, we'll get to that. That's the weird part.
Yeah, this is where you and I are going to have an argument about how it's not kidnapping.
It's fucking. Anyways.
Okay, so I reached out to my friend Max Peterson, who actually had falconry friends, and he got me in touch with them. I got in touch. So this is the best way. If you're interested in falconry, find out if you have a state club. At that point, most state clubs have a volunteer position within the organization that is for apprenticeship coordination. Find out who that is and reach out to them. It's typically via email. They're going to be the people who know what falconers are around you. And it is not always going to be a 5-minute trip down the road. There's only about, I don't know an exact number, but I think about 5,000 falconers nationwide.
Oh, wow. That's not as many as I thought.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like population density, it's definitely not a lot. So it might be an hour drive. Like I'm in Katy, my sponsor's in Magnolia. It's a 45-minute drive if we want to see each other. And typically to this day, even though she's not my sponsor, we still meet up to hunt together once a week. So it is a sport of driving for sure. And it might mean, you make a weekend trip out of going to hunt with people so that you can get out in the field with them. So that apprenticeship coordinator is going to talk to you a little bit, try to find people that they can connect you with that are nearby. And you're going to start, ideally, in an ideal world, going out hunting with them.
And as coming in as apprentice, I would assume you strongly recommend coming in open mind and not trying to show that you are the expert. Like you're coming in to purely learn. You got to know that. So
yeah, no, for sure. There's a lot of things that like you can read 100 books on falconry and try to apply that to real life scenarios. And it might not happen the way it does in a book, right? So wild animals do what wild animals want to do. In fact, in Lubbock this year, my bird decided he doesn't want to chase rabbits anymore. He's a squirrel hawk in front of a group of 20 people. And I was like, listen, you're not getting to see him catch anything, but you're learning a lesson, which is you can't always control the situation. Yeah, it's not a gun. It's a bird. Like it does what it wants. It does what it wants to do. And, I've had Goose long enough now that like he really likes squirrels, but he also knows he's not going to go hungry. I'm not going to starve him out. And that's kind of what prompted my maybe releasing him anyway. But going back to that, so you're going to start with going out in the field with people, developing the relationship by working hard to help make their bird successful. to show that you want it bad enough that you're willing to learn, even if the success isn't necessarily yours. Going to events like Texas is what I can speak to, obviously, because that's the club that I work with. We have 2 to 3 events a year, one of which is a picnic that doesn't even involve birds. The other 2 are hunting events that are open to the public. We actually hold on, let me pull up my calendar.
And while you're saying this, this is not a I'm going to go buy my bird and then show up and learn how to hunt birds, because that is not how this works. And we'll get into that, but it is a matter of it's a process, and you've got to do the steps of the process. There is no skipping steps in this process.
So the 16th, 17th, and 18th of this month, my sponsor and I are chairing our second club meet of the year. It's called the Bushy Tail Bash. It's going to be in Nacogdoches, Texas, and that is also open to the public. If you can make it, that's like a great way to start meeting people. Where we are in Southeast Texas, it's going to be primarily squirrel hawking. And this event is literally all squirrel hawking. So it's a great way to go, Chris, if your son is interested and you can make it. It's a really good way. There are actually kids in falconry. Most of them that have an apprentice license are children of falconers. It's just easier typically for falconers to get a license, or it's easier for adults to get a license because they can drive and do things like that than it is for a kid.
I'll share the information on the Gumbo page.
What was it was when
16th, 17th, and 18th.
16th,
17th, and 18th. And
I saw the event the other day posted on her page, so I knew about it.
Yeah, and if you go to the Texas Hawking Association's website or our Facebook page, I'm actually the social media coordinator, so I keep everything up to date, and you can actually message me on there if you can't. I mean, listen, I believe that your dragon probably catches stuff, so it's basically like lizard falconry, right?
I mean, could you imagine just sending Komodo dragons off to go catch a squirrel?
That would actually be really cool.
So
probably,
awesome. Wait, can we start?
probably
That be
arguably not legal.
But can we make that a new club instead of, and then we'll just people with giant monitors just sending their monitors out to catch, although they're gonna come back with like people's dogs and stuff.
I was about to say, let's not start outdoing me now, or you're not gonna want me on the podcast.
Just imagine someone sitting their croc monitor and comes back with a toy poodle and oh shit.
Dude, that's like one of my worst fears. When I got the puppy for Goose, I was like, please, please, please don't decide you hate dogs. Please don't decide you hate dogs.
So they find the someone to be apprentice for, and they work with them. Can we get into the part where they just torture them until they love them?
No, we're not there yet, James.
Oh, okay, my bad.
We don't have a sponsorship yet. Remember,
Gotcha.
You have to be patient.
Sorry, got all the steps.
Okay, so yes, you're going to meet people that way. At some point, you're going to develop relationships that might lead you to your apprenticeship. No, Ryan, get off of my podcast.
I'm glad to know, because I was like, I'm gonna skip that question.
No, so Ryan's daughter is one of the sweetest kids I've ever met. Seriously, like I'm very blessed to know lots of people with incredibly good children, but she is obsessed with reptiles. And I'm going to give her her first leopard gecko from my collection. And he likes to tease me because he's like, we're just going to feed it bugs from outside. And I'm like, I'm going to send her money to go buy crickets. Don't have your child feeding the gecko.
I had a fourth grader that caught a cricket outside and was like, hey, I caught this for one of our lizards. And before I could say a word, like 6 other kids from class like jumped all over his case and was like, that could have bugs and parasites and da-da-da-da. We can't feed that to our lizard. What's the matter with you? Da-da-da. And I mean, went off on this.
We're getting farther away from the part where you kidnap birds from their home.
Sorry. I do want to say that one thing about that though. I honestly believe that my boss probably did say that.
Oh, I don't even want to know.
I don't know which boss is what.
I'm going with Andy.
I was actually going to say probably Eric, but it really is like, it could be a coin toss. Andy is basically tiny Eric. Like, but anyway, if you meet kids who love reptiles, they are our future as a hobby. Please be nice to them, answer all their questions, make sure that they continue to love them because we want good kids in the hobby.
And
Anyways,
don't say the animal they like is stupid. I mean, I know I call ball pythons stupid all the time, but be better than me.
James.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
So, anyways, apprentice, we're getting closer to where we can just kidnap animals.
So you're gonna get a sponsor. In theory, they're gonna sign your sponsorship papers. At that point, you are going to take a 100-question test. This is for the state of Texas. Again, can't speak for other states from personal experience, but it's a 100-question test in Texas. You have to score an 80% or higher, I believe.
Which doesn't seem bad. That's a B, guys. You just gotta make a B.
Listen, I was this close to crying when I took that test. It's like you study, you cry, you keep studying, you hopefully pass your test. You can retake it, but that's aside from the point. I will say I did pass my first test. I called my sponsor and I was like, I don't think I passed. I'm really sorry. Could I try again? And then like 10 minutes later, I got an email and they're like, you've passed. So anyway, you take your test. If you pass that, the state is going to set up an inspection with you. That's going to inspect equipment and muse, which muse is basically like the housing for your hawk. At that point,
Can we go in? Can we go into the housing, because it is not just a bird cage in your house?
No. Well, okay. So it depends on what kind of bird you have, but no, in any case, it's not a bird cage. So smaller falcons like kestrels can be kept in the house. Technically, red tails can be kept in the house perched too. Everybody does it a little differently. Goose has an 8x8x8 portable muse that was made by Mike DuPoy. I think if you like look up prefabricated falconry muse, you can probably find pictures.
But there's a process. I actually can't. I don't think you can go straight to that, Chris. We'll get that in a second.
What is the
You said sea eagles, but there's a process.
You actually, I don't even know if you can have sea eagles. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well,
Chris probably can.
He probably can.
So,
because if he's getting it for his son, that's one thing. But if he's getting it for a croc encounter, he's got all kinds of other
harpy
paperwork
eagle be fucking
that allows him to do stuff.
You can actually have exotic raptors without a falconry permit. You just can't hunt with them, as far as I know.
Why would you want that?
What, a harpy eagle?
No, why would you want to have something if you can't hunt with it?
So, like people that use them for education, like
he's got a zoo.
Like
okay, I get that. Okay,
but a harpy eagle can.
I get that now.
A harpy eagle can snatch sloths off the side of a tree.
That would be freaking cool.
So I think that there's somebody in the United States that's breeding crowned eagles. I know there's a few other like exotic eagle species.
I've seen golden eagles used to hunt deer.
So I have a friend that hunts a golden eagle on jackrabbits, and I actually got to see him fly for the first time.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
The bird was pretty cool. I was like, I'm still going to tease you that that's a giant red tail, but that was really cool. No,
okay. So
now you're the one getting off on teasing.
Well, no, because he started talking about cool birds. So the caging. So again, I know a lot of people have the flight cage in their yard and stuff at their houses for some of these birds too, right?
Yeah. So, okay, wait. Repeat the question. I'm sorry.
So going back to caging for these guys, I know a lot of people have. I don't know the exact things, but like, did you have to have a flight cage or an outside cage for them to do that?
So it's not exactly a flight cage. So there's federal regulations, right? And then states can adapt those regulations to be more strict. Yeah. In Texas, we have to have a weathering yard. We have to have some kind of housing. I don't remember what the exact verbatim stipulations are on that, but for the most part, that's something your sponsor should help you with, because it's dependent on what kind of bird you're going to fly. So I knew from the get-go that I was going to fly a red tail, and I bought a muse prefabricated because I can't build for shit. I barely know which way of the hammer you're supposed to use. So I bought a prefabricated muse, and we modified a big dog run to be his weathering yard. There's a lot of ways to do it.
For this breakdown, for the muse, what is a muse?
A muse is basically what you're going to free loft a hawk in. So when Goose is molting during the summer, he's free in that. It's essentially almost like a little shed, an 8x8 shed that has barred windows. And his has a skylight, and
Damn.
he can be in there free. Yeah, I mean, little like bougie bird.
Got a TV and a treadmill and a hot tub.
He wishes. I had to soak his feet a bunch this season because he keeps getting bitten by squirrels, and I was like, how is it that I ended up giving this hawk spa treatments? But,
so he's got this shed. That's the Muse.
So you get your Muse built, to keep the story short. You get your Muse built, and then it becomes trapping season, which is James' favorite thing to talk about in the whole world.
So this is the part where we're going to talk about how you get a bird. And I need all of y'all to listen carefully, because all of y'all are like, oh, do you get to do this or get one of these? This is the part where if it was literally anything else, they'd arrest you. They'd be like, that's illegal. You can't do that. But this one, it's the rules. And I need you to understand this is the rules, because if you don't listen, it sounds fucking crazy.
Okay. So, hi, Leah.
Ryan, we apologize for our language.
I don't apologize.
Yeah, Ryan, his daughter is being corrupted by you guys. Thank you. Okay, so
get into the part where you're a horrible human.
We go trapping.
He
Okay,
is not.
so in Texas, we are. I'm totally not a horrible human. This hawk is so pampered, it's ridiculous. So it gets to be trapping season, depending again. So basically, here's going to be your major rule in an apprenticeship. Your sponsor is the law. Your sponsor makes the rules. Most good sponsors are going to hear you out if you have a question or a concern, or you want totally not horrible human. I like this Chris Peter. We're keeping him.
He's okay.
So legally, Muse don't have to have a double door entry in Texas. But sorry, I'm totally reading you guys' comments.
No, it's fine.
But I do actually recommend a double door entry, and my personal Muse has a double door entry. It basically just gives you, like, if your bird flies out the door, it's not flying away, which is great. When I first got Goose, I honestly really didn't put him in his Muse for like the first couple of months. When he wanted to be outside, like, he was weathered, and he was tethered when he was weathered.
All right. So just Haydyn's taking forever. I'm getting to this point right here because I think it's crazy.
Okay.
You have to catch your first bird.
Yes.
Like,
so
if we had to do that with reptiles, we're like, all right, guys, you want a retic? You want your first animal to be a retic? All right, that's great. You need to travel to Indonesia and catch one. Once you've caught one and you've taken care of that one, you can have retics. But you got to go catch one.
Okay. So here's the thing. Your first bird has to be a wild trapped bird.
And it's a small list. You can't, it's not like, oh, I'm going to get a bald eagle.
It depends on the state.
No.
So some states it's 2 or 3 species of raptor. Other states it's a free-for-all. But your sponsor still determines. So like in Texas, there's a whole bunch of different birds that you can trap as an apprentice. But like I wanted to fly a kestrel. My sponsor
How'd that go for you?
Shut up.
I remember those posts fondly.
I also don't remember them fondly. That little the thing was
I laughed every freaking time there was a new post about that stupid little bird.
He was so cute. And
go figure, a bird didn't want to be kept in captivity. That was wild.
That's okay, you've met Goose.
Spoiled you. That's the problem.
Just because that bird has Stockholm syndrome and thinks that you're great.
Goose is awesome. That's the problem.
But the kestrel you caught wasn't crazy and realized, what the fuck? I was just wild 5 minutes ago.
That kestrel would have been perfectly fine to live in captivity as long as I fed her and she didn't have to do any work. That was
not a very good falconry bird. If you
there was no correlation between you're supposed to actually catch your food. Well, that's actually a lie. She would catch things. She would catch bugs and she would catch lizards. And then she would take those lizards and fly to Egypt with them. And I would spend 2 hours of my day trying to find her. It was horrible. And finally, I was like, I give up. Be free. So yes, so you do trap a bird.
Christina wants to know how you trap them.
You're not climbing a tree and tossing a net.
It is not like
that.
It's not like catching Tweety bird. It's not.
The way that we trap here is actually via roadway. I believe that certain states have different laws regarding how you can trap. In Texas, it's legal to trap from a roadway. So we actually drive around, usually on back
It's
roads.
crazier. That's just insane.
We throw a trap out the window that has a little like mouse or something in it. You put the trap is on the ground. I mean, you're not like actually like yeeting it out of the car. You don't want the mouse to die. Like you're trying to be nice, right?
There are so many hawks around our neighborhood.
I actually know people though who use gerbils, okay? And the gerbils are actually pets like the rest of the year because they're like lucky gerbils.
This is the most fucked up hobby. It's the most fucked up hobby.
After they trap the bird, they don't get to eat the gerbil?
No.
That's messed up. At least give it a treat for being caught.
No. That's so it's okay. So you're trapping birds. My first goose when I went to catch goose, it took me a week of trapping. I think one of the reasons that I'm so attached to goose, and like this is going to be another like Haydyn mentions a really uncomfortable emo moment. I trapped goose the day that my great grandmother passed. And
funny story.
Funny story.
Stop.
Actually, funny story. She hated animals. She was not an animal person. But she loved birds. So like, I don't know. I guess I just got really like sentimentally attached to the goose. But
Chris is gonna kill me tonight, just in case anybody's wondering.
So I just saw the comment.
Gerbils are multi-use animals. That's true.
There are children on this podcast.
What are you talking about, Haydyn? We're just talking about catching hawks.
It's funny because this is the funny part, right? I have a couple of group chats and like one of them is gerbling. Okay, anyway.
Wow. So back to the less weird part. You're randomly catching hitchhiker birds on the side of the road.
Yeah. So you have to catch a juvenile bird, which is a bird that's still in juvenile plumage.
So you offer it free candy.
Yeah, basically. They're typically kind of poor hunters. As kids, basically, they're still learning, right? So they hit the trap. Let's say you catch a bird. You're really lucky you catch a bird the first day. You're bringing your bird home. You're getting it kind of acquainted to life in captivity. Sometimes they eat the first day. Sometimes they're like, nah, you're going to eat me.
Hold on, Haydyn. You're leaving out the fact that you have thrown a trap out the side of a car on the highway.
Not a highway, like back roads. Like
back road. Okay, my bad. Back road.
Oh, so not the roads by our house. Because there's hawks everywhere.
I mean,
everywhere.
In general, we would try not to do it on like a busy roadway because you don't want to freak the bird out or anything.
You don't want to freak this bird out that's now in a trap.
People driving by.
I mean, it's going to be freaked out, but like we don't want it to think it's going to get hit by a car level freaked out, right?
So Haydyn, you were like, all right, you take the bird home and if it eats. No. I need to understand how this cage now has this bird who's never been caught or touched by humans is being picked up by this giant ape. And how is this bird acting? And how do you get this? Because Darren's asking the same thing.
Whoa, so many things just happened at one time.
But
if you could talk about the moment when you first put hands on a wild caught bird of prey.
Okay, so it's the first bird that I put hands on. We trapped 3 birds the week that I was trapping. The first bird that we trapped was actually an adult that just hadn't done a full molt. So it had juvenile feathers, but it was an adult, so we had to let it go. And that was the first time I ever like saw a bird like really up close and personal, and it was pissed. Like I've seen falconry birds, but this one was pissed, right?
See, Goose is always in a good mood when I see him, so that's why.
Goose has already been tricked.
The second bird I trapped is actually a funny story. Haha. I trapped this bird by myself because at that point we'd trapped a bird. So my sponsor was like, you know what? I think that you can go out and like try to trap by yourself since we're having poor luck. I go out to trap. I trap this bird. It's a juvenile bird. I'm so excited. I'm running to this trap to get it off the trap.
Hey, hold on, because Jeff Frederick said you have to drive off for like a half mile and then watch like a perv with binoculars. Did you watch your birds like a perv?
Correct. I bought binoculars just to
fucking
watch
weird
the
hobby.
birds.
I don't want to hear shit about reptiles. We're not the weird hobby. We're
You
just
sure? You sure?
I'm positive we're not the weird hobby in these two hobbies.
Reptile people are weird in a different way than falconers are weird. Falconers we are like.
But your whole hobby is based on having to be weird from the get-go. It's like we got to kidnap and trick this bird into loving us. Then we're going to make him work for us, but he's going to think it's his own idea.
Like I guess simplifying it. But listen, as somebody who's done reptiles and falconry now for a while, I'm no expert, but both are pretty weird. And Ryan's right. It's not weird. It's genius.
Chris Dieter, see, reptile people use gerbils in the appropriate way.
Yeah. We're not throwing them out of the window.
We don't eat them out of a car window, hoping that we get a bird with them.
Okay. So I will say I do not use the method of holding a bird for days at a time so that it gets used to us really fast.
You will love me, bird.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like I said, with falconers, it's not like there's 100 ways to skin a cat kind of a thing. It's,
but a couple of ways to catch them if you get a big enough bird.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't use that method. I actually did training sessions twice a day with Goose, and most of the time left him hooded so that he was relaxed and calm. I have him, hold on. He's actually in his box right now.
He's in the mini fridge next to her.
Yeah. So he is.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up while you're talking. I'm gonna pull up some pictures. I got pictures of them that you sent me.
I saved pictures.
I should have sent you guys pictures of when I first trapped Goose. But anyways, the second bird I trapped actually had no beak. I called my sponsor and I was like, this bird has no beak. And
what do you do about that?
Well, the first thing she said is, what did you do? And I was like, no, I trapped this bird and it had no beak when I trapped it. It ended up going to a rehabber. And it was kind of cool because the rehabbers reached out to me and I got to see that bird after it had been with the rehabbers for a while and it was doing very well. So they named it Pico. And I will say, when I tried to get that bird off the trap, it shoved a talon through my finger. That was not great. Then the third bird I trapped was Goose, no injuries. I trapped him alongside my sponsor and another falconer who's local to us. And actually, this picture that you're looking at right now is the day that I trapped Goose. So,
with his cool hood on.
I know. So your transport.
It is a coroplast transport. Yeah.
Yes. So that picture is Goose the very first day that I got him. It was November 27th.
There he is in all his glory.
Pretty he is.
He's a good boy. He is. I mean, I'm biased. He's a pretty bird.
I may cry when you finally let him go.
We'll get to that later too, because that's another weird ass part to this whole thing.
Okay.
So you have to trap your first bird, right? The biggest thing is that you learn a lot from having a wild trapped bird. They are always releasable to the wild. So that's the kestrel that was evil.
Yeah, probably because you gave her that stupid hat.
No, it was evil before that. It's okay. I should have gotten something good. So I actually do not hawk rabbits. I hawk squirrels almost entirely. But I am of the opinion, and my sponsor is of the opinion, that male hawks can do just as well as female hawks. Male hawks are smaller, but where we are, we're very, very dense forest. It's a lot of brush. And as long as you have a bird that will slam brush, it doesn't really matter necessarily if they have an extra 300 or 400 grams. Males are more aerial because they have less weight. So they can get through brush sometimes easier than a female. The thing with female hawks, though, is that they tend to have bigger feet. And that makes them safer in terms of squirrel bites. But
that makes sense.
But Goose has really big feet for a male. So like the way that falconers have a foot fetish, I cannot even tell you. If you want to talk about weird things,
That's hilarious.
is that when I see a bird, the very first thing I look at are its feet.
Fucking
and then the very
weirdos.
first thing I say to somebody is, God, your bird has nice feet.
Weird ass people. Kidnapping
yes.
animals.
I have
Stockholm
big feet. I
syndrome.
would be great in the bird world.
You'd be a great bird.
Dude, like
Maybe I was a bird in my previous
looked
life.
at feet quite like I have since becoming a falconer.
That's hilarious.
So Goose has very nice feet, might I add.
Doesn't make this weird for everyone, I guess. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So funny.
Dude, the way that I get excited about pretty bird feet, I can't even tell you. Like now it's so bad that like when I look at people's parrots, I'm like, man, that foot, like it could use some work. I had this Amazon parrot that we worked with, and she was just really old, but she had like really gnarly feet. And I'd always look at her feet and kind of go, because it would freak me out. So yeah, so Goose has big feet. They're actually really thick. And when I pull him out, I'll show you guys what I mean. But like just having like really like muscly,
Look at those feet.
Like massive feet is great for squirrels. And those
nice
feet hold so much power. It's like having a wrench, really. Like I can't say enough good things about raptor feet.
All right, away from the feet because this is getting creepy. So you've caught your first bird, and now you've got to. How long does it normally take to take it from wild caught, pissed off because it's no longer wild, to pretending it likes you and actually hunting?
So I would say my experience, Goose was from the trap to hunting in about 4 weeks.
Okay.
I want to say that like average, especially for your first bird, is like 4 to 6 weeks. Some falconers that are really experienced manning and training a bird might take 2 weeks, but generally if a bird, I would say generally between a month to 2 months is like probably pretty average.
And this is how much time a day with it?
That kind of depends on what process you use to train your bird. So some people do believe that you should basically stay up for 3 days with your bird on the glove so that they're forced to get used to you, that they eventually eat, all of these different things. Some people do it the way that I did it, which is like a couple of training sessions a day, offering food, trying to get them to understand that like, so raptors don't think like other animals think. They are very food driven. And right about the time that they start taking food from you, they realize, oh, this person's feeding me, so they're probably not going to eat me. And I want to say Goose stopped. I'll see if I can find a photo, but Goose stopped doing this. When you first trap them, they do this thing where they like their eyes pin and they open their mouth and stick their tongue out at you like little dragons to try to intimidate you. And they like hold their wings out like this. And they don't want to sit on a glove unhooded. So they'll like throw themselves off the glove and you keep pushing them back up on the glove. And eventually they start standing on the glove. And you like kind of try to feed them with tongs or with your fingers or however you want to do it. And eventually they stop doing the dragon thing and they just start looking at you like, I'm really confused about why you're feeding me. And so then at that point they're eating. And I think one of the coolest things about Goose, so I was having the hardest time. I got him on the glove. I got him to a point where like he could sit on the glove and be looking at me and like wouldn't throw himself off of it anymore. But for like, I don't know, almost a week, I could not get this bird to jump to the glove. And I was getting so frustrated. And I actually had to, I think you guys might have been at this show. I had to go to a reptile show. I can't remember why. I don't remember if I was working the show or what the situation was, but I had gotten so frustrated and I was like, listen, I can't leave the bird at home because he's got to eat. So I brought Goose in his box, like a suitcase, like I'm carrying this suitcase around with this bird in it.
I vaguely remember him being in a suitcase at some show.
So I was carrying him around and I realized that like, it's time for him to eat. And I messaged my sponsor and I was like, hey, I've got to feed the bird. I don't really have a good place to do it. I'm at this show. And she was like, well, listen, just try. He's probably not going to do anything if there's a bunch of people around. but at the very least, get a little bit of food into his system and then try again later. I'm like, okay. So this bird, who's never jumped to the glove, goes from not jumping on the glove. I pull him out at the show. I actually set up on somebody's enclosures that they're selling. They're like, yeah, you can. I think it was Robert, who was like, you can set Goose up on my enclosures that I'm selling. And I'm like, okay, great. So I set him up with his little perch, and I'm like trying to get him to jump to the glove, and I'm creating an audience. All of a sudden, there's like 5 people, then 10 people, then 20 people. And I'm like, yeah, this bird's not going to do anything. There's no way. So Goose took his first jumps at that show. He went from jumping to the glove to jumping 10 feet to the glove in front of a crowd of people. My sponsor and I were freaking out, and I was like, he's going to be a good bird. I don't know. At that point, I had this really good feeling that he was going to be a good bird because he just was so brave. He was not fearful, and he was kind of a diva. He was like, oh, all these people are watching me. Like, let me show off. Look what I can do. And at that point, when he started jumping to the glove in front of people, I want to say like a week after that, he was free flying. Like, it was like, okay, now I get it. I come to the glove when you whistle. Okay, you're going to feed me if I come to the glove. You're going to keep feeding me. Like, his response was really good. We free flew him at a like little forested area. And it's funny because the very first time we free flew him, we put his telemetry on, which is basically like an old school, the way that I could explain it is it's basically radio GPS, right? And that's how we track them if we lose them. So we put the telemetry on him, we let him go, and before I can even see if he's going to follow me, he's chasing squirrels. And Aisha and I are like, oh my God, like he knows squirrels. Like, this is fantastic. So
he knows squirrels. He was living in the wild a month ago. So.
Actually, he was living on a pole at a Buc-ee's.
I was going to say, he's the Buc-ee's baby.
There were still squirrels around. He was eating something.
Buc-ee's has everything.
He was eating grackles is what he was eating.
He was eating beaver nuggets.
He was saving me from the birds that tried to eat me in my car that day. Probably.
He was definitely eating some weird stuff, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't eating squirrels based on the location. But he must have been eating, so my theory is that he was a migrant. But he from the get-go was like all about squirrels, which is awesome. It took us about 3 weeks of hunting before he actually caught one though. And he, of course, decided to. So there was like these wooded lots by my sponsor's house. They've since been bulldozed and they're now houses. But her neighbors all knew she was a falconer and like were totally cool with her hunting these lots. So she let me hunt with my bird there. And he decided to catch a squirrel in somebody's backyard. So she had to jump the fence with the bird and the squirrel. And he got his first squirrel that day. I actually have pictures of that somewhere.
Okay, so I got 2 train of thoughts. One, I want to go into the feeding part because Jeff did say something. Wait until you hear about the weight management for raptors. They're worse than ball python people with their scales. I do want to talk about, you talked about having to take Goose with you because you couldn't leave him home and just feed him when you got home. How much and how often? Because I know there's no fat on these birds. So like they've got to eat on a regular basis.
When you trap them, they are typically, some birds aren't, but they are typically fat. So to get them to a place where they're like flying with you and hunting with you, you trim weight off of them so that they're motivated, right? And I don't, off the top of my head, I don't have like a specific percentage or anything, but you generally take X amount of weight off of them to get them to a place where they're fit, but they're food motivated. And
I love how you make it sound nice, but in reality, you're like, you basically starve him right to the point that he's healthy, but he can't live without you because he's hungry.
I actually wouldn't say that like starving a bird in practice is necessarily useful. there are reasons to keep a bird. Yeah. So Ryan says 10%. And I want to say that we went in with the idea that we would take 10 to 15% off of Goose, but Goose was very fat when we trapped him. He actually had food in his crop.
And how much does he weigh? Because I know a lot of people don't realize, they see a huge hawk on a power line. They're like, that thing's got to weigh a ton. But then
Liars. He is a lot heavier than you think he is.
But he's not. He's got
because I
hollow
held him
bones
on
and
my
all. He's
arms.
not.
So he was trapped at 1050. So, and this is grams. And I want to say that that's like a little over 2 pounds. Then he flies now at about 890 to 900 grams.
Jeez.
But when you're trying to hold still and not freak him out because he's having a great day, it weighs a lot more than you think.
So they're really strong. And I think that that's the thing, is much like retics, like when you're holding a retic and it's really strong, it doesn't necessarily actually weigh 200 pounds, but all of the muscle makes it feel like it weighs 200 pounds. With raptors, it's kind of the same thing. Like when they're jumping and baiting and like just being assholes in general, they feel so strong that you're like, there's no way this bird doesn't weigh 5 pounds. Goose weighs like 2. My friend's golden eagle hunts at 7 pounds.
That's crazy for how huge that bird is.
That bird weighs more than our kid's dog.
Well, golden eagle?
Could eat our kid's dog.
They hunt deer.
I know.
So here I wouldn't say that in the United States, it's a common practice to hunt deer.
I've seen like in Asia and Europe where they do it.
Europe,
or in the wild, they'll grab goats and chunk them off the side of a cliff.
I have not seen that.
I've seen videos of that.
It's definitely, raptor predation is very interesting. A friend of mine, Neil, just published a paper, and I'll send you a link in case you want to post it, of a bald eagle eating. Oh man, hold on. Now I'm looking it up, but he wrote a paper.
Well, the golden eagles I've seen, they'll fly, they'll take these goats off the side of a cliff and then pick them up and chunk them off. And then they'll fly down to where the goat falls and dies and then eat them.
So it's I don't know if you can see this, but it's a bald. My phone's
not working.
No, okay. Well, it's a bald eagle that's actually predating upon a greater siren.
Oh, that's cool.
It's very cool. So like there's a lot of like one-off things that like happen where like raptors are kind of just like, oh, like this is food. I don't know that it happens a ton in falconry with like squirrel hawks, but I do know people who've like had their squirrel hawks like grab possums and stuff, and you like trade them off the possum and like go hide the possum somewhere. And the possums, like, I don't know what just happened. They're usually fine. So like even with squirrels, when Goose catches a squirrel, I think people's like thought process is Goose catches a squirrel and then he kills it, and then I get the squirrel after it's dead. Goose catches a squirrel and they fight. Like squirrels are incredibly smart, they're incredibly strong, and they bite. So the nicest thing that we can do for them at that point is put them down. We use I don't have it with me, but it's basically a really nice ice pick. We call them shivs. But I actually, Ryan,
not a fancy name at all. Just a shiv.
We just shiv the fuck out of that squirrel and
pretty much. So actually, Ryan, who's in your
into
comments
a prison
right
yard
now,
brawl.
Ryan makes really pretty shivs for falconers. It's basically pithing. That's exactly what it is. You hit them in the back of the head.
I was like, what is pithing? I don't know. I've never heard that.
It makes it sound better than shiving.
Hey, listen. You're talking to me like I don't know that there are reptile people putting things in the freezer. Okay. Just saying.
I'm not going around shiving rabbits.
When you Google pithing, you get a Magic the Gathering card that pulls up. So let me keep scrolling.
Maybe you should go pithing falconry.
Yeah.
So you might have better luck with like
because this is like a pithing needle.
Like look up like dispatch, Corey dispatch or something.
How to kill a squirrel.
I mean, so it's instantaneous death though. And I think that like when I talk to people, because they're like, oh, it's so mean that you're like torturing these animals. And I'm like, listen, raptors are catching these animals in the wild, and it's a humane euthanasia method. Exactly. And it keeps this bird from having its feet torn up. But 2, it also prevents suffering. It prevents suffering of the squirrels. And I think that the nicest thing that you can do for any animal that you're hunting is give it an honorable death and
Absolutely.
a humane death.
What is that?
Your mom coughing? Joe coughing? Anyways.
Oh, sorry. Weird noises from
It's
I do
the
want to
ghost of Katie's cough.
That's what it is.
He muted me, so I
What,
could blow my nose.
What are the percent chances of your bird just flying away and not coming back? Because
Is it high?
how often does that happen?
Ryan, you chime in if you know. I actually only know of it happening like once or twice, but I'm sure it does happen quite a bit.
What?
Wait, so like this Ryan is the one that makes the fun things that we use
Yeah,
to put things out of
yes.
misery?
Yeah.
Very cool.
So Ryan has a business called Chivalrous Designs.
Chivalrous.
And
Make
it
shapes.
is fantastic.
He was in prison
actually,
for a while. He can make them out of toothbrushes and
He's not making shanks, he's making shivs.
Oh yes, and they're very nice. Mine has a deer antler at the end of it.
That's so crazy.
But yeah, no, I agree with Ryan. A lot of it comes down to the particular species. What I can talk about is red tails.
I'd be trapped in a week, Chris. It's all good.
Oh yeah,
there was someone recent. I remember, was it last year? Someone around here had one with their jesses on, and like it was flying around this area. I never saw it,
so
but I remember seeing it on
if a
Facebook.
bird, so there's a big difference in a bird getting loose the first time it free flies, and a bird flying off when it's been with you for a long time. So like peregrines routinely fly off. That's just what peregrines do. Most falconers that fly falcons fly them with GPS for that reason.
But they fly off at a bajillion miles an hour. So
well, and typically it's just easier to find them with GPS. But like red tails, I've not really had the problem of my red tail flying off. Yes, the owl from New York is still loose as far as I know. And that was not a falconer, that was a zoo.
So Dieter says, does anybody use a caracara? But they're more of a scavenger, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, so caracaras can be really mean from what I hear, not necessarily to people, but like to other birds and stuff. But they're not really hunters. So I don't know anybody using caracaras for falconry.
If anybody's not sure what a caracara is, imagine if a parrot fucked a hawk and then you get a caracara.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like a really weird, like long bird.
Colorful face, and it's odd. And first time I saw one here, I was like, that's a weird ass looking bird.
Okay, so I didn't know about this bird from New York. It's been free for a year.
I'm not going to lie to you. I would be incredibly surprised if it's still alive.
Well, so this apparently, like, they've got eyes on it. Like it's still roaming free, and like they've got like this article is from the USA Today from yesterday.
Well, what's tricky with the zoo is that I'm assuming that was not a wild caught bird. That was probably
that was a captive bred bird. As far as I believe, it was a Eurasian eagle owl.
Oh, those are cool. And I knew a guy in Louisiana that hunted with one of those.
But my assumption would be it's never hunted a day in its life.
Yeah, like this whole article in USA Today and the one from 3 days ago on NPR.org.
So they're still feeding it probably.
How, like people in the city like know this bird, and his name is Flacco, and like.
So my understanding was that
ridiculous.
They were not allowing people to try to trap it. I don't know if that's true.
It's a Eurasian eagle owl.
But they should. They should definitely let somebody trap it and get it back in captivity. I'm a huge, very staunch that
it's from the Central Park Zoo.
Yeah, it is.
Which means that we saw it when we were there last summer.
Or it was already gone.
Or it had already.
I don't remember when it got out.
February of last year. Crazy. Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, you're good. I've worked a little bit with Eurasian eagle owls. Owls are kind of stupid, not gonna lie. Like I've just not met. They're just very different from like hawks. Like owls and hawks are not the same.
Darren says in the chat that it's been observed eating rats, which I'm sure there's plenty of them in New York. So
it might be catching. I mean, I'm sure that it has some instinct, obviously, to hunt. But I'm very surprised to hear that it's still alive, knowing that it's likely never hunted before. but
they're a cool looking bird. I knew a guy when I worked at the zoo in Louisiana. He actually was doing his community service through our zoo, but he did falconry, and he got a Eurasian eagle owl. And I was like, that's a cool looking bird.
Eurasian eagle owls are really actually cool birds. Not owls in general are not typically good falconry birds, but they're very cool birds. They seem to be very hard to train, and it kind of is a one-off situation where you get an owl that really wants to hunt with you. But they're very cool birds. I did know about the owl in New York. I did not know it was still alive. So that is
okay. So I do want to get to. We talked about it earlier, and you kind of hinted at it. Once you catch this bird and you've tricked it and it likes you, this is not a lifetime friendship, right? You've talked about possibly letting Goose go.
Yeah, and like that's so. Here's the thing: is to a degree, falconry birds are tools to hunt. It's a hunting sport. Goose would not be happy if he wasn't hunting. He would not have a fulfilled life. You know, we talk about like how important enrichment is with reptiles. Think about it being 200 times more important for a bird whose whole life is hunting. I mean, whether they're captive or free, they spend a majority of their time hunting. It's a survival. But Goose is one of those birds that, like, you know, he loves hunting. This year, he just he's getting older. He's definitely more focused on girls and things like that. But
gotta go make little gooses.
And
it has geeses.
He is a bird that, like, regardless of how many. So here's the thing: you trap a bird, and some sponsors require that you let your first bird go, and that you trap a second bird to fly your second season. So falconry is a 2-year apprenticeship. And then it could be longer than that. It's based off of when your sponsor signs off on your paperwork, but it's at least 2 years. My sponsors did not require that I released Goose, and he was such a good bird that we both agreed I should keep him. He's getting to a point now where, like, he's still a good bird, don't get me wrong. And I think part of what was going on this year was a weight issue. I was trying to fly him a little bit higher, and he just wasn't really connecting with prey items the way that I wanted him to. And I was perceiving that as lack of desire to hunt. So sometimes the longer you keep a bird, the better they get. And sometimes they get worse. And you can't really know until you've tried. So my plan was to get Goose and to fly him until I had until I knew that I was going to have a year where I wasn't going to be working as much. I wasn't going to have as much going on, because I think that one of the reasons I have the bird that I have now is I invested so much time into getting him around strangers, putting him in big crowds, making him a little uncomfortable, so that now he's a very stable adult. You know, I'm sure you guys have seen, if you guys go to like the Conroe Herp shows, you've seen me with him there. And you know, I think that did a world of good for him, and I will always appreciate Sean for allowing me to bring my birds to the show. I think people enjoy seeing him, and it's always nice when somebody remembers us.
Is there no fear of him imprinting on people too strong? Like, if you let him go, he's still going to want to come and be around people?
So imprinting happens when you pull birds that have no life experience. So like when you're pulling birds from a nest, you can imprint a bird, and and so like I'm going to get into this question about, do released birds ever approach people after release? So like I said, we fly them at what we call hunting weight, right? So when we're getting ready to release a bird, we go through a period where essentially they go without contact with you as a human. You throw food into them and to where they're being kept, and you leave them alone as much as possible. But you get them to a point where they're so fat that they no longer need you. And this can happen with any bird who's even a bird that's being hunted. Is like you feed a bird a little too much and you don't get it attached to your glove fast enough, and it's like I'll just sit in this tree. And then, we have backup plans. Like Goose is lure trained. So if I pull a lure, he knows that that's like an instant automatic big reward. So in theory, if he like ate too much and flew off on me and I pulled the lure, he'd come back for the lure because it's red tails are greedy.
Yeah.
And it's such easy food that he wants to come back to it. So essentially you get them to a place where they're not needing to be fed. They're not being, the food is no longer being associated to humans, and then you release them. Goose has only flown off on me, knock on wood, one time, and it was my own fault. And he didn't really even fly off. He just sat in a tree, and I thought I was going to have to wait overnight. So if that happens and a bird gets too fat, sometimes you wait, and then you go back to call them down like the next day. They generally don't leave the area, or at least not like a huge amount of area, depending on the kind of bird. Again, I can only speak for red tails.
Yeah.
And I do want to preface that like I am not an expert on falconry. I am a second-year general who happens to also be a reptile person. And if you're really interested in like all of the logistics of other kinds of birds, there's another podcast called the Falconry Chronicles and Falconry Told. And that's going to be a really good source of information on like other kinds of birds and other kinds of training and things like that.
So I've got a question about, so we talked about your first bird has to be captured, and you get the first bird captured and all that. But once you get to your level, and I know people, you can then look at getting a captive bird or another bird. How does that process work? And like, does going through this process of being a falconry allow that to be legal? Because like you can't keep a hawk feather if you find it in the wild, right? Because you can't prove you didn't kill it.
So falconers can keep feathers.
Gotcha.
Because we use them for like a process called imping, where we basically like reconnect different feathers to broken feathers. That's the only way I can think to like verbally explain it. So we actually are allowed to keep bird feathers, but captive bred birds. So in order to breed raptors, you have to have a raptor propagation permit.
I'm assuming that's a federal permit.
It is a federal permit. I think it's also a state. I think it's kind of works the same way a falconry license works, is that like it's overviewed by the federal government, but I believe it's issued by the state.
Everybody's got to get their money.
I'm not actually exactly sure how that works because I don't have a raptor propagation permit. So there are people in the United States that breed all kinds of raptors. Mostly as far as I know, we don't have very many people breeding red-tailed hawks because they're so easy to trap, and they seem to do better being trapped than being imprinted. A lot of people hatch and chamber raise Harris hawks. There also are a lot of falcons and hybrid falcons that are bred in captivity. I don't really personally at this time have an interest in having a captive bred bird. If I were to release Goose, I would likely trap another red tail. So you are actually allowed to continue to trap birds after you get past your apprenticeship. And a lot of people do. Like, I honestly can't see myself, if I continue to live in this area, right? The best bird to fly for the area that we're in is a red tail.
If there's a million of them
or a kestrel. I mean, they're just built for the kind of game that we have. And that's a big thing, is it's not always about what kind of bird you want. It's about what kind of bird you need to have for the quarry you have available.
What about like temperatures? Because like we live in South Texas, it's hot. So like, a red tail all year long is probably going to be fine. But I imagine there's many types of birds that you could not hunt here.
So one of my dreams is a goshawk on squirrels. But goss don't tend to generally do well in high heat and humidity. They are really, really sensitive to asper, which is like a bacterial, I believe, infection. And it can kill them. And some like finish line, I believe, tend to be more asper resistant. But the average price of like a nice Gus from a finish line might be like, I mean, honestly, I haven't even looked, but I want to say that somebody told me it was like around $2,500. And I don't know right now, I don't have the desire to have that kind of work when I can fly a red tail and not have to be concerned about it getting sick. If I lived somewhere like Arizona or New Mexico or further north, then I would definitely consider the Goss on like some kind of quarry.
And I imagine something like a golden eagle is not cheap either.
So golden eagles can actually be trapped, but an eagle falconry permit is different than like a normal falconry permit. I have honestly no idea how that works, but if you want an eagle falconer on your podcast, I might be able to help you with that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that is different. And I know that like my friend Chase, who flies the golden eagle, the golden eagle's name is Dexter. He trapped Dexter in a depredation area. So that makes it like illegal. I like I said, I don't really know exactly how that works, but they're really cool birds. It's just a different, like eagle falconry is a different level of falconry. So you have to be a master falconer to fly an eagle.
It's just crazy. Just, I mean, that's,
and there's really like like where we are, there's no point. There's nothing for us to fly an eagle on here. Eagles need a lot of open space.
yeah. So I guess like West Texas is probably pretty good. You're going out West Texas wide open.
Yeah. So Chase lives in West Texas. The problem right now too is we're just having really bad like rabbit and jackrabbit numbers. They're better this year than they were in prior years, but they are still kind of not as great as some would like them to be.
Yeah.
So he's having a lot of like difficulty finding enough jackrabbits to get his bird good slips. And like I said, I got to see him fly, and that was still really, really impressive. I mean, that's a powerful bird.
So like Darren says, are you allowed to hunt across state lines, or is that something you have to? Okay, so that it is.
Yes. So I have to have, even though I have a falconry permit, I also have to have a hunting license. Different states have different rules, but I actually brought Goose. Goose has been to Oklahoma and Nebraska to hunt. We caught a rabbit in Nebraska this year, which was really cool. That was our first head of game out of state. And I had to have state permits for both of those marmots. I honestly have no idea if you could hunt a golden on marmots, but there is a falconer, an eagle falconer named Lauren McGow. I don't remember what her Instagram is, but she hunts mostly jackrabbits with her.
I just imagine seeing that massive bird take an animal like that is amazing.
Her Instagram is Eagle Falconer. But she's a really cool source if you have interest in, like if you're just interested in golden eagles. Like I said, it's not really something that we can fly here realistically, so it's not something that I've like really looked into. Even though I think eagles are really cool, that's not something I necessarily have an interest in flying personally.
Yeah. I've worked with a couple of the coolest thing I've ever worked with was an Andean condor.
That would be cool.
We had one, and it was not a full-on flight cage, but we had one. There was a female. The males are always kind of an asshole, but we had a really good sized female, and it was when Katie was working at the zoo with me, and she was trying to get some good pictures of it. And I mean, you can get pictures of it sitting on a perch in a cage, and that's kind of boring. But I found what I could do is take the white spray paint cap, because it was used to coming down and eating white rats and eggs and stuff, and so. She would go sit up on the perch, and I could toss it out in front of me, and she would swoop down. So Katie lined up right in front of it.
I got some great pictures.
And she got pictures of her just like swooping down, arm, wings wide open, and then you just kind of block out the background so it doesn't look like a cage. But you get this huge Sori Andean condor. I
love birds. I feel like every time I interact with my bird, with other people's birds, I learn something. And I still feel that way about reptiles. So like, you asked the question in the group, like, do you think you could give up a hobby for?
Oh yeah. So here, let's do some of those real quick. The questions. Do you feel you could ever give up or minimize your reptile keeping, breeding, or events in order to pursue other hobbies? Right. Let's go over some of the answers, and then we'll go over your answer for this because this was your question. So let's go over a few. Our buddy Paul Byfield, who was in here earlier, said only during hunting season, then mid-January, that feeling goes away. Our friend Megan said no. She couldn't imagine doing that. Couldn't imagine giving up. Our friend Danielle said no as well. There were a couple of them, though. Corey Martin. So we had Corey on last week. She's a friend of the show. She said minimize, sure. She's in the process of downsizing and refocusing right now. Reptiles are something that I see being a part of my life for the rest of my life, but I imagine the form that it takes will look different at different ages and stages in keeping. For her, it is. We talked about last week about her getting rid of all of her ball pythons and moving to monitors, which I do want to give her a shout out. She did just hatch black tree monitor babies for the first time.
Very cool.
So that was really cool.
That is very cool.
But I can see that. I definitely refocusing has happened multiple times in my collection over the last 20 years of keeping. John Feely says I had to take this year off breeding and downsize in order to move to take care of family and help with cattle operations. So our friends at D&T Retics said no, but they have retics. They're weird. They don't count as people. Our friend Tracy from the Herp Show says we did when we found out we were pregnant. They had to downsize considerably, make a bigger effort to rehome all the rescues they had, which is weird because when we had our kid, people were like, "Are y'all going to get rid of snakes?" No, I'm probably going to get more. I don't.
Well, they may have.
No, they had to. They had.
Oh yeah.
Ours was different. People wanted us to get rid of them because they were afraid they were going to eat our baby.
Yeah.
I
mean, if we wouldn't have had a room to put our baby in, we would have had to downsize.
The baby could live somewhere.
But
I like Chris Dieter. Downsize question mark?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
so I will say, like, for me, 4 years ago, I couldn't have imagined having less reptiles than I did at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well you guys knew me when I was like peak keeping, but I was doing like all the venomous presentations for herps. And I probably had 100 some odd snakes. I mean, I had a huge collection. Most of it was venomous. And when I got into falconry, I realized, 6 months of the year, I don't have time for 100 snakes. And I think that that's a huge thing that people don't realize is that falconry, just like reptiles, can be very all-consuming. It is, and this seems very cliche to say, but it can be very much a lifestyle as opposed to being just a hobby. And I still have venomous snakes. I still have normal snakes. I work at Pets Aplenty. I'm actually kind of refocusing my life right now to potentially open a business. And I still plan my entire life and my entire day around hunting my bird. And I didn't realize, so like for my first year as a falconer, I was not working. And then when I started working, I realized, crap, every minute of my free time is this hawk. It's the biggest commitment I, as a young adult, have ever had. And I can see why so many people wait to become falconers until they have more time or they don't have to work or whatever their situation is. I can't imagine giving up falconry. And it is something I've had to okay, maybe I need to take a year off. Maybe I need to trap a new bird. And so that was a big thing. Like if I can keep goose, I'm going to, because I don't really have time to train a new bird right now. I don't have time to train a new bird right now the way that I want to train a new bird. So it's one of those things, it's very hard to imagine. When I downsized, I've kept Giblet, of course, which is my little monocled cobra. And she's the love of my life. But
you free handle her all the time, I assume, and poop her.
No, if there was one animal in my house that was going to kill me, it would definitely be her.
Hilarious.
She is mean as shit, honestly. But I'm very attached to her. She was actually the very first snake that I ever bought, a venomous snake from Andy.
I'm gonna say, geez, first snake ever was a.
No, the very first snake I got from Andy when Andy taught me how to handle, and when I stopped working with him as my mentor, that was one of the first snakes I got from him was Giblet. And I'm a really sentimental person, unfortunately.
So it's going to make letting a hawk that you've had for a while go very hard.
I honestly, it kind of breaks my heart and it kind of makes me excited for him because I want to hope that when I do decide to release him, because I think that eventually it will happen. I would like us to get to the 5-year mark, but I do think that it will eventually happen. And thinking about it makes me sad, but I think that he would be a great raptor partner. I think he would take very good care of his offspring. And I think that he would put a lot of really good hunting hawks into the environment. So
There's so much to think about.
it's a lot to think about.
So
It's a lot. Yeah.
Darren has a good question. He says, after the initial cost of the Muse and the flying equipment and all, what are your other expenses on?
So after your so licensing is an expense. Hunting licenses, your falconry license, my yearly expenses, it depends on if you are planning to keep a bird. So like some people trap a bird at the beginning of the season, they hunt it for the season, and then they release it at the end of the season. So your cost of food obviously is less if you don't intermew your bird, which is essentially keeping it through the molt. I do that. So a big cost for me yearly is food. Whatever he catches, he eats at this point. But I do supplement with chicks and rats and rabbit and things like that. I mean, I don't know what his actual cost is by himself, but with the snakes, I'm spending a couple $100, probably a month-ish. I don't have too many veterinary care expenses, fortunately. Fuel to go out hawking, falconry events if you choose to go to them, but they're not mandatory. Replacement equipment. So even after you buy your initial equipment, you can still, have to replace it. Like my glove is 4 years old and hold on one second. It is probably about time to replace it. I just had a friend make me a custom glove that I haven't switched to because I don't want to mess it up.
Hold on, I'm gonna make full screen here.
So that's Goose.
So pretty.
So you don't actually have to release them exactly where you trapped them, but we do typically release them at certain times of the year to give them the best chance of, doing well in the wild.
He does look big.
So.
You can see his big squirrely feet. He's got all these bites from squirrels this year.
Those great feet, Goose. What'd you do to him? God.
Hey. But he's
like, what you got?
I don't think he loves me at all. In fact, I know that probably scientifically this bird does not love me at all, but I love him so much. I actually had him tattooed over my chest because I'm sorry, my camera's backwards, but I've got him over my heart because he started the love of falconry for me. And whether I have him or not, he will always be a huge, huge part of my life. So I will definitely cry.
There are only a lot of us out there with you also crying. I feel bad.
But even if he doesn't like you, to have a bird like that you're able to just hold on your hand, let alone hunt and do all the other things. The fact that it's letting you hold it like that close and it's not trying to pick your eyes out and kill you is the coolest thing. He is totally cool just to look at up close and in person.
Yeah, he is.
And he definitely has a level of he respects you because he knows you also respect him.
I think respect is a good word. I also think that trust is a really good word because I think that I've done a lot. So taking him to shows, one of my biggest things that I wanted from him is to realize that no matter the environment we were in, he was going to be safe if he was out with me. And I think that I can credit a lot of his acceptance of people and other animals to the fact that I worked so hard on it. So he got we've had some falconry dog mess ups, but he got a puppy this year and he flew with dogs for the very first time in 4 years, which it seems to be harder to introduce dogs later in their life. And he's gone from flying with no dogs to having flown with 6 dogs this season, and he's caught 2 squirrels alongside dogs.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's really he kind of, I think, knows that for the most part, I will do whatever I can to protect him. And while he might not love me, he definitely trusts me more than he trusts
Yeah.
a
Oh,
stranger.
absolutely.
So Jeff says his feet are really yellow. Do you feed chicks or quail at all?
So I feed quite a bit of chicks. That's his favorite when I hunt him. So chicks are going to be, they don't hold the weight of a chick the same way they hold the weight of a rat. So I feed a lot of chicks during the falconry season, but he's always just been like very yellow. However, I do like to feed chicks, so that helps.
Shameless plug. There are pictures of me with Goose on the Reptile Gumbo podcast discussion page if anybody wants to see them.
Oh yeah, dude. And like I
They were
said,
great pictures. He was so chill.
if there's anybody who wants to go hunting, are you happy?
We're going.
We're
Yeah.
We're gonna plan it for it. We'll plan it a second time for my mom just walked in so she could see. So we could go hunting with her. So you can go with him and watch him hunt. And
yeah, I should be free this weekend. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if
Have a quilt
anybody who's
workshop this
interested and is
You can
close
go.
enough to me, you can reach out to me, and I can typically get away with really big groups with him, which is nice. And then in terms of dogs, I've got a field-bred Springer Spaniel, a wire-haired Dachshund, that's a hunting line Dachshund, and then I've got a Yag Terrier. So the Spaniel is kind of crazy, so he doesn't get to go hunting with us that much, unfortunately. I am training the Yag, and the puppy has gone out hunting with him. But this summer is going to be like dog training, like festival for me. So
I'm assuming the dog helps scare things out, and then he can.
Yeah, so it depends on the kind of dog you have. The Dachshunds are typically rabbit dogs, but I just prefer Dachshunds. And like I said, our brush is really thick, so they can kind of maneuver themselves into tight places, which is kind of nice. Ryan, who was in the comment section, actually has Dachshunds, and he has a Dachshund named Goose, who I fell in love with. So that's kind of why I decided to get a Dachshund. You're
Is it
right.
a smooth or rough Jag Terrier?
She's kind of broken coated. So did you just poop on the floor? Thank you. That's great. She's a broken coat. She is very cute, and her name is Turtle. So I've got Turtle, Grim, and Gander, because Gander was our first falconry dog, so it had to go with Goose.
Nice.
But,
so one other thing as far as most people, when they said about could they do that, a lot of them said yes they could in certain things, but everyone basically said they couldn't think of getting out of the whole hobby.
yeah.
I think from this and from what you were talking about, the big thing is knowing limitations, and that's really what we talk about a lot on here with your collection, is knowing your limitations, and you know that you couldn't keep the amount of snakes you had and do this hobby.
And I think, the sad thing for me was I want to be able to do both. I'm one of those people that, like, I don't like to have to give up anything. If I say I'm going to do this, like, I'm going to find a way to do it. And I couldn't. I burnt myself out so bad just trying to make something work that wasn't going to work. So I'm down to probably about 20 snakes. That seems to be a really good number for me. I've got a few things in cooling right now. So I still have my whole group of African fat-tailed geckos. Sorry, my grandparents' cat is like sitting outside, and he's like,
Get him, Goose. Get him.
Good Lord.
no, that cat's evil. Don't get it.
Kill it, Goose.
Luckily, I have cats, so he's pretty used
like,
to seeing
whatever.
me, I had to use my grandparents' house because I was like, my macaws are not going to be quiet for this.
So our other question this week goes along with what we've been talking about, was do you think hunting is good / necessary for Jesus Christ, Goose, we're doing a podcast here, man.
Hey, can you
Get
be
your
good?
shit together.
So funny.
That
I'm
was
gonna
rude. Don't talk to Goose like that.
It says, do you think hunting is good / necessary for conservation? And almost all of the answers were yes. And everybody,
I love that.
and everybody with the understanding of that, a lot of them, and I think a lot of people don't get this, especially animal rights people. Look, there's a difference between animal lovers and animal rights people.
Well, and
Animal
There's a
rights
huge
people are
difference.
fucking nuts.
Well, and it also has to do with like how you're raised.
Well, but
Like,
that's
because I was raised with a hunter.
not even the big thing is a lot of the animal rights people don't realize that hunters and fishermen are the reason we have a lot of conservation.
Oh yeah. And like, because my dad was a huge believer in when it's not hunting season, you're doing whatever you can to put back into the community. And you're doing whatever you can to help make that area stronger and healthier. And he also was one of those, like, once his freezer was full, he was done. He didn't just hunt for the fun of it. He hunted to feed his, 6 kids that he had at home.
So I will also say, and I think this is a falconry fact that not a lot of people know, and I sent you links about this too, is their peregrines were on like the edge of extinction.
Oh yeah.
Some years ago. And it was really falconers who put time and energy and effort into creating captive breeding programs, using falconry techniques for release. So DDT was a huge reason why the population of peregrines plummeted, and falconers are really to credit for the fact that we have the peregrine populations that we do now. And I think that, personally, like, I was not a hunter. I was not raised as a hunter. My family does not hunt. I always kind of had an interest in hunting because I always had an interest in animals. And I thought that the idea, like, I'm a person who very much believes that hunting is one of the most ethical ways to consume meat.
Yeah.
I think that, unfortunately, the way that meat is farmed and things like that just tends to be legitimate ethical issues at times. So I think that if you can hunt, that's fantastic. And a big goal for me the past few years since I got into falconry was learning to gun hunt. But like I said, nothing Goose catches goes to waste, right? Like, it's all his food. I actually take the squirrel feet and the tails and like mummify them and give them away as gifts. So he, literally nothing goes to waste. But
well,
it's hugely important. We definitely, all of our hunting licenses and things like that, we put money back into.
Well, we had one person who said the thing was hunting for predators, no, for prey probably, and omnivores probably not. So that's a weird way to look at it, because I don't think they're looking at it ecologically, right? If we have hunting limits on anything we have hunting limits on, there's usually a study been done that tells you, look, this is the reason we can do it. Robert had talked in here about New Jersey at one point getting rid of bear hunting because people can't kill bears, they're cute, and then they got overrun with bears.
Yeah.
And then they opened up bear hunting again, and they killed a ton of bears, and they still had way more bear. Like, they're still having to deal with all these bear problems. So I think we also
like, oh no, I'm sorry. I think that a lot of so like, you just got a comment about like hunting for sport, and I do see why people have ethical issues with sport hunting. But I will say this.
But they do eat those. They're not.
So I've done a lot of research. I have a friend, and I'm not going to name him because public forum, but I have a friend who is a big game hunter. And he goes to Africa and, he does elephant hunts and things like that. And I wasn't really sure some years ago how I felt about that, because I kind of felt the same way that you feel. And I was like, like, I don't really see the point in killing these like animals for a trophy. Like, I don't really get it. Now that I'm I've done a little bit more research, and I now recognize that a huge reason why trophy hunting is important is because it really supports the local economy so that they continue conservation projects. And, here's the big thing is we should support ethical hunting, which means science-backed hunting, things that are related to population numbers, and have biologists looking at it being like, okay, yeah, like, we can kill this many of this species, and then that money goes back into the communities. So like lion hunts, I was actually reading because I was trying to get prepared for this podcast, and kind of what I wanted to say, anxiety issues, and I was reading about lion hunting and how, like, after the like Cecil the lion incident, everybody was like, let's ban lion hunting. We shouldn't have lion hunting. And they were talking about how when you go to Africa and you kill a lion, the money that you pay to do that, goes right back into the communities who were sometimes otherwise killing them because they were a danger to villages.
You put an importance on them. Once you put an importance on something,
they want to be protected.
Yeah, because again, to a lot of those places, especially the places that are poor, they don't have that same connection with wildlife that you do. It's there, but if they can kill it, get food from it, they kill it, get food, whatever.
Really?
Goose going crazy trying to go back in there, but once you show them an importance that they can make money off other people coming there and doing, they see the reason. And a lot of those, I will say, a lot of those big exotic hunts that they have when you go to Africa for game for sport, a lot of that meat goes to local tribes and local communities. They may send back the mount for the person who shot it so they can put it on their wall here in America, but that meat tends to go to the local people there, so it actually feeds people there. It's not going to waste.
It's definitely, there's definitely a lot of supportive aspects of hunting that I think, well, in trophy hunting specifically, that I think people don't think about. Like, I think, do I personally think that I could go shoot an elephant? Probably not.
I probably couldn't. No.
I probably couldn't, but I am not going to knock somebody who enjoys hunting to that level and is willing to invest thousands. And I mean, literally, the friend of mine that hunts, we were just talking about this elephant hunt, and he was like bidding on it, and he was like, yeah, the bid's at $20,000. That's a really good deal.
Jesus.
That's like a freaking car.
And over there, that's a ton of money.
Well, and I was like $20,000 is more than I've ever seen in one place ever. So I was like, okay, like if I had $20,000, I don't know if that's what I would spend it on.
Right.
But like that's $20,000, or at least part of $20,000 that goes to the.
So.
Sorry, I'm reading the comments.
I know. I want to say, Laura, I understand. She says if they're hunting them in the wild where it's managed populations, that's one thing. And she says maybe not so much in stocked, but the stocked Texas populations, sometimes we have a larger population of that antelope or whatever it is in Texas than they do there.
Than they do in the wild.
And again, it is for sport and it is a trophy, but it's also getting eaten. Yeah, they're still eating. It's just like going hunting whitetail, which we have here. But they're hunting an antelope instead of flying to Africa. They're hunting it here in the States.
I do think it's very funny. Well, not necessarily funny might not be the right word, but
we've already had this discussion.
So through talking, because a lot of falconers are also game hunters.
Yeah.
And I talk to them quite a bit about it because it's something that I'm really interested in doing in the future. And something I hear a lot is, man, I hate Texas deer hunting because people sit in front of feeders to shoot deer. So they habituate deer to coming to this feeder just so that they can harvest them later in the year.
Yeah, it's done different in Texas than it was like
in some other states. Yeah.
A lot of states you can't hunt overfeed.
Mm-mm.
Yes. So like that's a huge, like a lot of people have a big problem with that, especially people from other states. And they're like, that's not actual hunting. And so I had this conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, and I was like, I get that it might not be like actual hunting, right? Like it's not really like fair game hunting, but
it's management.
It's management and it's filling the freezer.
Yes.
And I would have a problem with it if it was, we're going to habituate these deer, shoot them, and then do nothing with them.
Yeah. Or if numbers were going to decrease and we're going to be in trouble later down the road.
I still think that it's better. You're right. It's harvesting, not hunting. That's kind of pretty much what everybody has said to me. And
but we would agree it's better than raising cow and having to deal with the raising cows and all the stuff that goes with that.
I actually think it's probably like farming, like private farming on your own land, like homesteading type, and is probably not actually as bad as like factory farming.
Yeah.
But harvesting is almost still more ethical than most other forms of meat consumption. So I have a hard time having a problem with harvesting hunting as opposed to like going to the, like, it's just very interesting to me how many people have a complete disconnect between how their food gets to their plate.
Well, and I can understand someone having a problem with harvesting, but not a problem so much so they don't want it to exist. That's where I have if you don't want to do it, I see it. but the fact that people do it is not a negative. It's actually a positive. And really, in a lot of the states here in the South, our white-tailed deer population is ridiculous.
We have
we're not shooting nearly enough of them, and it's getting bad.
I think I see a dead deer on the side of the road at least twice a week.
Yeah. I mean, like pig hunting. Since moving here, I haven't done it yet, but I want to go hunt pigs.
I do too.
And no part of me feels bad about it because they don't belong here. I want to go. Like, if you can do me one of those helicopter things with a semi-automatic rifle, and I just like mow them down, I'm all.
I don't know if I want to get that crazy.
Oh,
but I actually I laugh all the time because I've got a bull terrier who I think would make the best boar dog. He's like insane, and I'm like, the dog doesn't feel pain. Like, I'm like, she would be the perfect boar dog. If I ever find somebody who hunts pigs, I'm gonna be like, listen, I've got a dog. You've got the gun and the property. Let's go. Like,
let's take care of this problem.
That's one thing. Yeah. Robert's going to take me pig hunting at some point. I'm going to make him take me. I'm going pig hunting. That's definitely one of my goals. I'm hoping next year maybe I can get myself involved in like a duck hunt or something.
You know, people.
Hey, Paul will take you. I mean,
Paul
Byfield will take you duck hunting.
Paul who?
Byfield. He was in here earlier.
In the chat earlier.
You know, he's at reptile shows. You'd notice him.
He does ball pythons.
He does ball pythons.
Okay, yeah, and see, like that's like the bad thing is like I'm really familiar with all the venomous people shows. It's kind of it.
That's funny.
We can get Paul to set you up for duck hunting.
Hey, let's go.
I'm not allowed to go hunting. I talk too much.
I probably talk too much. So that's the fun part of squirrel hawking is you can literally run around the forest yelling and pulling on vines and half climbing trees and being obnoxious. And it's like
kind of thing.
The best.
That's Katie's hunting right there.
Yes.
Yeah, mine too.
All right. We have come up on 2 hours. We need to do our giveaway.
Yes.
I also wanted to just real quick, I want to look at some of the things over on our discussion page because there were some interesting things posted this week.
Okay.
And let me pull those up real quick. There it is.
Well, while he's pulling those up, guys, seriously, if you can make it to the squirrel meet or if you have any questions about falconry that I was not able to answer on here, please feel free to reach out to me anytime or to our the Texas Hawking Association page. There's also the North American Falconers Association.
Darren, we will bring Haidyn back for. We didn't talk any reptiles or leeches.
Anything about leeches.
We did not talk about leeches. If we come back, I will promise I will bring my live leech.
Yes.
He's an old man, but
we will do leeches.
I can't do it.
That's it. Some of the things that we had posted over on the Facebook group this week
bathtub.
Is this giant turtle bathtub, which is probably AI art.
Not real, but that's cool.
You know, still a cool bathtub.
I kind of love it.
Yeah, get you a big old sea turtle bathtub. Our daughter did a public what was it called?
It's STEM Fair project.
But it was
so they had 3 categories. They could choose an experiment,
which we did last year.
They could choose engineering. Thank God she didn't pick that.
No.
Or they could choose community advocacy. And so she chose to go the community advocacy route. And what they had to do was find a problem in their community and discuss how they could fix that problem. So she actually talked with our friend Megan, and she chose snakes in the community. And so her project was Snakes Matter.
That's really cool.
She basically talked about why we need snakes in the wild and why you shouldn't kill them when you see them and why you should call people like Megan to relocate.
And she handed out flyers for Megan's services and her next upcoming things. And she talked to people about snakes.
We should find out in the next week or two whether or not she gets invited to the district level again.
Yeah.
Last year, she actually got to go present at the district level from her school because she did so well at her school.
I mean, I think that's a really cool project. So,
well, I'll say this. She was in a room with all the other 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that are in this advanced science class, and they have to They're supposed to stay at their board, and they're supposed to talk to people when they come to their project. And she was one of maybe 24 that actually did out of the 60 that were in the room.
Yeah.
She was never on her phone. She talked to everyone that came up to her, which was
and told them that the importance.
Very impressed with.
Told them about the importance of snakes and all that stuff, and it was great.
I have a friend who is getting his PhD in herpetology at OSU, and I am happy to put her in touch. I'm sure he would love to help too. I don't have much in the way of native snakes, but I do have a timber that he actually gave me.
That's
from
cool.
From Nebraska, and she's more than welcome to borrow it.
But they won't let us
That's
do
the
anything with the
problem
backbone.
is she can't have any. So she
Because I would
had,
have brought some stuff.
you can actually see
Yeah,
like
that
a
would-
crocheted snake on the table. And
That's
there were
so cool.
several adults that were like, well, why didn't you bring anything? And she's like, because we're not allowed to work with anything that has a backbone. Because like last year, she actually had someone that came up to her table this year and remembered her.
She
from
did one with
last year.
isopods last year.
Because she was like, wait a minute, you're the girl that had the roly
Yeah.
polies. And she's like, yeah, that was me.
That's awesome.
And because she had her colonies with her last year. So she had isopods. But yeah, we're not the parents that do the projects for her. She 100% did it herself.
Super
I helped
cool.
put the board together and that's about it. And that's just because she used our sticker machines to do it.
So other things we had posted, Jason Miller had shared this one. The headline is this woman doesn't want iguanas in her toilet. And he said, how lame is that? I'm all for if they're big reptiles in my toilet. So
yeah,
that doesn't seem bad.
People always send us stuff.
This one. This is the one for for Haidyn. True fact of the day. When falcon breeders want to breed falcons, they wear special falcon sex hats. The hat encourages the falcon to shag the breeder's head and collect the falcon sperm, which can then be artificially inseminated.
So it is a thing. I don't know if it's still practiced now. This was in the part where I have to tell you I don't really know that much about falcons. There is a huge separation between people who fly hawks and people who fly falcons.
Gotcha.
You mean y'all don't let birds fuck on your head?
I mean, listen, if my bird is doing that, he's definitely getting released.
My bad, not fuck, just jizz on your head is all they're doing.
She's got a line that she won't cross.
There are a few lines. I will talk about your feet like it's a fetish, but I do not actually want you to like.
We found where too weird for falconry.
Hawkers.
So hawkers just will not let their birds jizz on their head. Got it.
Correct.
Okay, falconry guys, they're letting it jizz away. They got a special hat for that. This is if you're in Colorado and our friend Jason Miloradovich is
you just like
Jason Miloradovich.
There you go.
This is a messed up thing. It's basically they're going to put a tax or a permit on if it passed. If this is what they're trying to on basically every reptile you own, every exotic and every fish, every bird. Not like, oh, I've got 100. Here's one license.
I have to hope that there's no way that passes.
I hope not.
We all have to hope there's no way it passes because this could very quickly become something in every state.
It's ridiculous, this whole thing. So if you go over to our discussion page and read this, and you start to read it, and it just seems so outlandish. But yeah, they said summarizes if you have 100 aquarium fish, you could pay up to $850 annually just to keep the fish.
Nope. I love my beta fish, but I'm good.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh,
that was a funny little cartoon.
It was the guy. It was Medusa. She says, "My eyes are
up here," and he goes,
"Nope," and he just keeps staring at her boobs.
That's who I'm going as for Halloween. Thank you for your service.
This was one that was crazy, Nathan. But I've heard these stories. This is an old picture of when they were collecting chameleons in Florida, and then you see the bullet holes in their car that they got shot at while they were trying to collect chameleons, because some of those places are so protected because people have released those chameleons there on purpose so that they can collect them and sell them.
Oh yeah,
and they will keep people from collecting.
Can the audience see the face I'm making right now?
No, not right now.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
So
it's probably just as bad.
But those bullet holes, I've heard of horror stories of people trying to collect chameleons, just herpers trying to herp down there and being threatened.
God.
I still kind of low-key want to do it though.
Oh, this was funny.
This is it's like a bullfrog or something eating a bird, trying to eat a bird.
It's not really going that well for it.
No, it's an egret. You can see it like an egret in its mouth. That bullfrog, bullfrogs will just try to eat pretty much anything.
I was just talking about how frogs. There's this species of frog. I shared the meme in like one of the reptile groups I admin for, and it was about how like some certain species of frog will have sex with anything, and I was like,
nice.
And I was like, man, frogs, they just be out here having sex and eating. And I can appreciate that.
Frogs like
what a vibe.
Travis posted this. I haven't listened to episode 150 about stegosaurus on the Common Descent podcast. So if you want to listen about stegosaurs, that'd be a great one. Madagascar. I didn't read this article, but it says Madagascar giant tortoises have returned 600 years after they were wiped out.
That's exciting.
So I'm
I
assuming
haven't read that yet.
I
I'm
assume
clapping.
that's Aldabras. I assume that is them bringing them from, because those islands aren't far from Madagascar.
This has all been posted since we've been down with the flu, and I've done nothing. So,
This is a fucking toad eating a rattlesnake.
That's awesome.
get it, bud.
That is
It's like a
Western.
regular old toad.
That's a regular. Well, I'm regular toad,
It's like the toads we have in our yard.
but that's like a young Western diamondback in its mouth.
That's insane.
That is
Toads and frogs.
really interesting.
My dad posted this. He told me what happened. So it's Alice Cooper telling a story about back in the day doing a concert, and there's a whole bunch of famous rock stars off stage, like laughing at him. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and he's doing the concert, and then he looks, and the boa that he's holding shit all over him on stage, and he talks about how horrible that smell is. And I'm like, oh yeah, that just shits on. Yeah. So
I took my mom hunting the other day with Goose, and she was helping me get his telemetry on because my hands were cold, and he totally shit all over her, and I was like, my bad, sorry.
We need to do our giveaway. Gotta do our giveaway. So for our blanket, not everybody can see it. We talked about it before. I posted a picture. It's Katie made a blanket. It's flannel.
The video really is. Just
It's not great, but it is it's like flannel on one side, and then it is cool snake print on the other side.
It's made out of fleece.
Fleece.
It's a plaid pattern and a snake pattern.
That's what I said.
God bless
Listen.
it.
I was in the same
Flannel and fleece are not even the
Fleece,
same
flannel,
material, James.
shit, whatever. All right. So the winner is.
It's a snuggly blanket to read
Drum
with Aaron.
roll.
Oh, we know the winner actually.
Do you really?
It's number 4. Do you want to read it?
Oh, it's Tracy Renee.
Our friend Tracy Renee.
Yay!
She's gonna be
From
so
the Herps.
excited.
And she's small enough. This will be like a
That's
king
the
size
perfect
blanket on
size
her.
Blanket for her. I
That's
love
perfect.
it.
So next reptile show, we'll see. But I'll
That's what
message
to say.
Tracy.
Yeah.
Hey, Tracy, I'm good luck.
That's so. She's gonna be excited.
So that was our giveaway.
That was really my thing. Is I wanted it to go to somebody that was gonna appreciate it.
She'll appreciate it.
I think anybody who's ever had to tie one of those blankets would appreciate it.
So that was actually like the 4th one I did that weekend because
Oh,
I'm
God.
going through some project boxes and getting rid of like projects, and like I've bought stuff to make stuff, but then I never actually made it. So I'm working
Me
through
too.
my boxes, and by the time I finished that one, my hands were cramping, and I was like,
I know what
I can't. I got to be done.
I know what we didn't mention. What used to be the Arlington NARBC. So anybody that's gone to that Arlington last year, the hotel and convention center that it was at has changed what it's doing, and it's becoming something else. And so they could no longer have it at that convention center anymore. And so they had to find a place. They found a place in Dallas. The problem with Dallas is you can't sell certain reptiles in Dallas. And so
Well,
I don't know
don't
how-
feel bad. You also can't have a hawk in Dallas, apparently.
well, fuck
And
Dallas.
I was literally in a group chat when I saw that post, and I was like cackling. I was like, I wonder if they arrest all of the migratory birds, like that live there.
No joke.
So what's going to happen and what they post today, and it's going to change how that show is, and I guess who really wants to go to it and who wants to vend it. As far as pythons go, here's what you can sell: ball pythons. That's it. No other python species can be sold. And you may be going, oh, yeah, that's fine. Retics, berms. Yeah, but you can't sell children's pythons or carpet pythons or any of those. Now, here it gets even dumber. As far as boas go, boa constrictors. That's it. You can't sell sand boas or rosy boas, but you can sell a 10-foot boa constrictor.
Rosy boas are little piranhas. I can't even blame them there.
But you can't even sell a sand boa, a little 2-foot sand boa, but you can sell a 10-foot boa constrictor. No other boas are allowed there
Well, it's
at
okay
all.
because if you continue to read the list, you also can't sell racers
Nope.
or water snakes.
Nope.
Well, fuck that. Those smell bad. I'm not selling them anyways.
I like water snakes. Be nice.
I like broadbands. I think they're beautiful, but they smell
Like,
bad.
and I
They
don't
do
go
smell
to
bad.
those shows a lot of the times to buy stuff.
Yeah, but if you're going
necessarily.
as an
But I
event, because it's
go-
supposed to be an event type show.
Well, and that's just it. Is I go to shows like that to see stuff I'm not going to get to see.
I
Now,
agree.
They
It's
did
gonna-
say, I think they did say you could display stuff,
But what's the
but who's
point?
going? Yeah, like
Like if you're going to that show, you're going to turn a profit. So,
So
at
I
that
told a
point, are you
friend,
just
like-
going to take pictures with stuff?
I told
and
a
charge
friend,
people
like,
for that?
me. So, we have such a good show here with Conroe, and a majority. So, like this year, I have a pair of vipers that I'm hoping to breed beaded lizards, and African fat-tailed geckos. And I mean, obviously, fingers crossed, I don't have eggs from anything yet, but it doesn't make sense for me to drive 4 hours to a show where I can't sell anything that I have.
Yeah.
And then I also can't see anything.
See anything? I say see anything you want. I mean, you can see crested geckos and ball pythons and corn snakes.
I said things that I want.
But that's what they'll have there. You're going to have to want those because that's what they have.
I do think it's a cool show. I think it's unfortunate, though, that they weren't able to find another location.
They're going to have to get out of Dallas.
They're going to have to get out of Dallas. Somebody told me that we had an NARBC in Houston at one point in time.
I believe there was. But the problem is Houston also has laws, and certain shows that have come through there recently have ignored those laws. But you're not supposed to be able to sell constrictors over 8 foot.
Well, so like that's why I'm confused is why not just move the show to like Central Texas or something and find a venue, like broaden the perimeter of where you're planning to have your show. The problem is
that show is a destination show, not as much as Tinley, but being in a big city like Arlington, Dallas makes it more of a destination.
Austin and San Antonio, like
that is true. They could go to Austin because we've done the Austin show with Herps, and someone mentioned that actually, and you can have hots at that show too. So I mean.
Well, I just think like there's a lot of area in Texas that has nice like places to stay and places to eat, and like you could make a destination show in Central Texas just as easy as you could make one.
And some people I enjoyed. Some people were talking, and I commented because some people were like, "Well, you should just have the show in Ohio," and I was like, "That makes no sense. It's a Texas show. Why would they move that NARBC show to close to the other NARBC show that's 2 states away?" And I looked at the distance. The farthest you could have to drive from Ohio to NARBC in Tinley is like 7 hours. It takes you more than 12 hours to get across Texas.
Texas, I think, given our reptile laws and how many keepers we have here, Texas is always going to make sense for a show.
Yeah.
That's just,
It's just the big cities here are weird. San Antonio has some laws. Houston has laws. Obviously, Dallas has some laws. So you do have to get that perfect spot.
We can touch on this if we have a part 2, but I'm actually kind of genuinely concerned for the Texas hobby in terms of venomous keeping right now with some of the stunts that we have people pulling and all of these like poorly. Well, we'll touch on it over part 2, but.
We will have Haidyn back on, and we'll talk leeches and hot snakes.
And yeah, the sexiest snakes.
Hot, sexy snakes. Wait, that's not what we're talking.
Hot, sexy snakes.
We'll get Chris Dieter on here, and
I was about to say, Chris Dieter, are you there still? Was there a dragon?
All right, Haidyn, thanks for being on here.
Of course, thank you for having me. And like I said, find me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm happy to talk to any of you.
Yeah, on Instagram, she is.
Something to hawk about.
Something to hawk about. So,
hang out. Tracy is pumped that she won the blanket.
Hang out for a second, Haidyn. Let us close out real quick. Don't forget, check out Herps Reptile shows. We'll see you at one, hopefully nearby soon. VivTech products, code Gumbo22 to save you 15% on all your VivTech purchases. Also, check out our friends over at Lil's Shop of Horrors in San Antonio for all your feeder needs. Anything else, Katie?
I think that's it.
We will be back next week. I think that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for listening, and see y'all next week. Good night.
Okay.
They can still see us.